Start. Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to the Gian program, Next Generation Sustainable Alternative Proteins for Food, Fundamentals and Technological Innovation. We are on the day 8 today, and we are going to have 3 lectures and 1 tutorial today. That's going to be a long day. The first lecture is about lecture number 15, Emerging Innovations, Cultured Meat, Microalgae and Insect Proteins. Lecture number 16, Regulatory Framework for Alternative Proteins, Global Perspectives, and the last lecture of the day, Consumer Perception and Market Acceptance of Alternative Proteins. And then we are going to have a debate about market strategies and how we can educate consumers to consume more and more alternative proteins. Alright, so let me begin with the first lecture, that is Emerging Innovations, Cultured Meat, Microalgae and Insect Proteins. I must tell you one important thing here is that I will be mainly focusing on the first part, that is cultured meat, simply because microalgae and insect proteins I have covered a lot on the day 1. So, I do not explain that in detail again, I will just brush through those 2 aspects. Is it okay? Since we have not covered anything about cultured meat, so mainly I will be focusing on cultured meat, how do we produce and so on. Would that be okay with you? Great, and I hope you have had an amazing day yesterday, and Professor Josh was talking about crystallization of proteins, and you could link that particular lecture with one of my lecture where we discussed about protein characterization, right? We talked about primary structure, Edmonds degradation, secondary structure, tertiary structure and quaternary structure, remember all this important thing. And to elucidate the tertiary and quaternary structure, that is one of the important tools, and we also use it in our own labs. Very complicated perhaps, I haven't attended the lecture, but the crystallization of proteins are not easy. It's not easy. It's a lot of things to do there, right? I hope you got an idea about how people do these things and their application. So now, for now, just forget about crystallization. Let's move on to the most interesting part, cultured meat. Okay? Any? So you all agree that meat is important. I have shown this slide on the day 1 as well. So we consume a lot of meat. Meat industry is one of the largest industries in food sector. Though we want to go for animal to plant, still meat consumption is not reducing. It is reducing, but not that fast or something like that. It's still a big business around the world. So if you look into this graph, you can clearly see that Americans and Europeans consume or historically been consuming more meat compared to Asians. So it's one of the largest food commodities. So it's very difficult to tell people don't eat meat, right? That's in their daily diet. They eat meat, for example, we also eat meat in for lunch and for dinner, and I can't say to my parents, okay, completely stop eating chicken. They are not happy, right? So it's very difficult to completely stop meat. But then I also discussed this slide showing that, okay, we can make things in a very sustainable way, we can produce more meat in a small time, maybe that will help the world, but that is not the case either. We have been trying to do many things to animals, and now people talk about animal welfare. So it's very difficult to change how we are producing our meat today. I'm not telling it's impossible, but it's very difficult. We have already reached the biological limit of most of the animals. They are producing highest amount of milk. Chicken is producing highest amount of meat within 38 days. So by eating small amount of food, they are trying to convert all they have eaten into protein somehow. We have tried everything, but maybe there is nothing left. So that's why we need to have some kind of transition. I can say that okay, just eat plants, plant-based foods, but still people are, no, my tongue doesn't eat like plants every day. I need to have meat at least twice a week or thrice a week. So we are in a dilemma at the moment. It's impossible to completely stop eating meat, right? The dilemma is like this. We need to have a transition from animal based to plant based in order to protect animals, right? There is an animal welfare. They say that, okay, I don't want to harm animals because animals also have the right to live like us. That's one of the dilemma. But still, I want to eat meat, right? Do you agree? That's a dilemma we all have, right? The second thing is that, oh, we also know that animal husbandry is responsible for highest greenhouse gas emission. So we need to save the environment as well, right? The third dilemma is that we want to save the environment, we want to have animal welfare, and we want to eat meat as well, right? So we are in a confused state, like what do we do now? So we need to have different strategies to avoid this dilemma. One of the strategies we discussed that, okay, you take animal based sources, in this I show insect alternatives, and then get into meat analog and then eat them, right? So now you are satisfying yourself, your craving for meat, right? You took an alternative source for meat and you satisfied your craving for meat. But again we talk about, oh, I don't want to eat insects because that's not in my culture. I don't like insect because probably they are harmful for my health. Consumer acceptance is going down, right? So now we have been thinking about, is there any other option? Then we thought, okay, we will start processing the food, right? We want to add so many ingredients and process it, and then we get like I hope I have another figure. We get a different structures and texture, all plant based here. That gives you a new taste and new texture. However, we still think this is not meat, right? It's still, we think it's not meat because oh, it's coming from plants, or how can I call it as meat? It does not have the same juiciness, despite we processed all this thing. It does not have the same juiciness. It does not have same fibrous thing we feel when you eat chicken or pork or whatever other animal. We still have problems. Now we have been thinking, okay, is there any alternative? And one of the alternatives is that, can we produce meat? Can we produce meat without animals? Can we produce meat without animals? We don't have any animals here, no living animals here, but still we are getting meat. And that is the new technology, not very new. That's a new technology, and that is called cultured meat. Am I clear? That's called cultured meat. Just to give you some rationale here. So how are we producing meat today? So I need to draw a structure of a cow. This is my cow. Okay, it has a ear, huh? This is eyes. It looks like elephant, right? No, sorry, this is my cow, okay? Let me make a tail. So now how we are producing meat, we feed the cow, right? We feed grass to cow, or we feed rapeseed press cake to cow, right? What cow will do? Cow will nicely eat them, right? Now the grass or whatever fodder we are giving to the cow, it contains nitrogen, it contains amino acids, it contains carbohydrates, right? They will digest it, then they will resynthesize those nitrogen into new proteins, right? That's how the body works. So they resynthesize amino acid into new protein, they convert nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen into new proteins, and that new protein goes to milk, right? That is the milk we are drinking nowadays, animal based milk, right? The second option is that the same protein is converting into protein after digestion and becoming muscle, right? That's the meat we are eating, right? So basically we are converting a plant based nitrogen into animal based meat or milk. Do you agree with me? There's a lot of processing is involved inside the body, and that emits greenhouse gases, nitrogen oxides, methane, and all these problems we have already heard about, right? Now, we don't want to have this track, right? Because there is a life involved here. Do you agree? There is a life involved, and we need to kill the animal to get the meat at the end of the day. So we have a life involved, and I don't want to use this track. What will I do? I'll take a big plate. Okay, I'll take a big plate. and I will take a small portion of tissue or a cell from an animal from some region, I will explain that later, I will put it on the plate. Okay. God has created organism in such a way that some will grow continuously. For example, let us take bacteria as an example, right. You take 2-3 bacterial cells and put it into so called media, 2 bacteria becomes 2 million bacteria, right. Right. You take microalgae, 3-4 cells you put it into a so called media, and 3 microalgal cell becomes this much biomass within, let us say, 10 days, right. So, they grow, and like that animal cells also has a property, they can grow, right. Now, just to give an example, you have a bacteria, this is my bacteria, I said that they grow, one becomes 1 million by dividing themselves, by reproducing themselves. Now, what do we need for this? Do they simply grow? We need a media. What do you mean by that media? Media contains? Nutrients. So, somehow if you supply nutrients, in some cases you need to supply light, for example, microalgae. Sometimes you need to supply carbon dioxide for microalgae. Sometimes you need to supply oxygen for oxygenating, oxygen loving bacteria. So, if you supply everything they like, they grow. Same thing is true with animal cells. If you supply nutrients in the form of media, they proliferate, right, they divide, they differentiate, and they can become a biomass, right. Not the same as this meat, but equivalent, not exactly the same, but equivalent, a meaty structure, a meat containing equivalent proteins can be produced, and that is called cultured meat. Is it clear? The concept is clear, right. We are producing meat without using animals, but using animal cells, and that is called cultured meat. And let us do a little bit talk about history. This is not something very new. I was reading some history about this one. Apparently in 1930s, Winston Churchill, the British minister statesman, and he said that, okay, we need to find an alternative way to produce chicken, how to produce chicken drumsticks and wings without chicken. And then then please, this is something really new concept. Nobody has thought about eating meat cultured in a glass jar, because the meat were abundant outside and nobody thought about it. But because of this transition nowadays, people are keep thinking about, okay, we need to find an alternative way. In 2013, Professor Mark Post from, I think he's from Netherlands if I am not wrong, Maastricht University, I am not very sure, and he launched the first cultured beef hamburger, the burger. Apparently it costed $330,000. $330,000 in Indian rupees is like, I don't know how many zeros I have to put in front of one. It's a huge sum. That much is costed simply because the technology was not easy, it was new. He had to try so many things, and then if he got a hamburger, and that costed so much money. Would you buy that one? Nobody would buy that. But research went on, right? Research went on, they tried numerous other things to reduce the cost, right? They made the processing so easy, and in fact in 2020 in Singapore, one of the restaurants sold the first meat analog, the first cultured meat burger, I think, if I was not wrong, in Singapore. So, it has been marketed, it has been eaten, the government has given approval. Does that make sense? So, it was nothing, nobody imagined back in the days that I would eat a meat produced in a glass jar or a bioreactor, but now in 2020s, it has become a reality. People are eating in different countries. Many countries has given approval, which I will talk about that later. Does that make sense? It is a brief history. What I wanted to mention is that it was actually impossible thing people would imagine, but it actually has happened because of this transition. It was super expensive Now it's just expensive. It will become maybe cheaper in next 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, I have no idea. But this is the way forward. Hundreds of different companies are working on this one to get cultured meat. Now I'll talk a little bit about the technology and how we are producing cultured meat and so on. But if you look into the literature, if you write about cultured meat, people use different terms, right? They are the same meaning, right? Cultured meat, cultivated meat, lab grown meat. But please note that usually companies are unhappy if they use the word lab grown meat, because it's more scientific, because it's not necessarily lab grown when it comes to supermarket. It is grown in a food industry, right? We don't call a lab grown soybean chunk. Do we say that one? No, but that's the reason why they don't want to use this term. In vitro meat, in vitro means produced outside, not in vivo, it is ex vivo. Cell based meat, synthetic meat also not a nice term to use, just to for avoid marketing term perhaps. And slaughter free meat, that is a good terminology because we are not killing the animals here, so no slaughtering. Craft meat, healthy meat, shea meat, artificial meat, this is also something industries would avoid using, because as soon as you use the word artificial meat or synthetic meat, consumers say, oh my god, it may be something plastic. So that's the reason they might not, but people use different terminology in scientific articles or in news media and so on. So, but just remember that we use the term cultured meat. I might use in my lectures two terminologies often, cultured meat or cultivated meat, they are the same, all right. Now, how we are producing cultured meat? Yeah.
Meat is also cultured meat.
I will come back to
Okay,
that in detail
that's
later.
something different.
It's 3D printing can be a part of processing of cultured meat.
Okay.
3D printing can be associated with cultured meat production. 3D printing can be associated with mimicking the structure after getting cultured meat.
Okay,
So
it is a kind of technique used for making cultured meat.
Absolutely, it's
Okay.
involved in the cultured meat.
Okay.
Okay, 3D printing itself is not cultured meat, but I will explain that in detail. It's a good question.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any questions so far? Are you getting the point what this cultured meat? Okay. Now, I mentioned that cultured meat is nothing but it's a technology where using one or two cells, we are producing a biomass containing too many cells. Imagine, just to keep it in very simple. And that biomass is nothing but meat and can be eaten. But before I am explaining that how this is small in the petri dish, you had one cell and it becomes numerous cells and that is becoming meat, imagine. We need to understand the basics here, how exactly they are doing. So, in the next couple of slides, I am going to teach you little bit basics. You need to have a little bit of cell and molecular biology background or biochemistry background, but not much is needed. However, I am pretty sure you guys have studied cell biology in your high school, in your colleges. It's a very common subject have been taught, right? We all know that the body is made up of numerous cells, right? The body is made up of numerous cells, and numerous cells can become a tissue. Do you agree? We have muscle tissue, we have brain tissue, we have heart tissue, right? Numerous cells associate to form tissue, right? And numerous tissue can associate to form an organ, right? For example, you have a heart, multiple tissues are there. You have brain, a fat tissue is there, a protein tissue is there, right? It's protein enriched tissue is there. It becomes an organ. A multiple organ can make your system, right? A multiple we can create you an organism, a living being, a human being, right? We have heart, right? We have heart, we have kidney, we have lungs, we have nose, and all these nose is not an organ. So we have all these things associated to make a living being, a system, right? I'm telling you about the complexity we have. Cells to tissue, tissue to organ, organ to system, right? And some things are edible, not human beings. Let's say pig as an example, or chicken as an example, poor chicken, right? Drumstick, the meat is edible. Liver is an organ, that is edible. Heart is an organ, that is edible. Skin is there, right? Not necessarily. So that that is also edible. So we have different things. At the end of the day, they all constitute as a broad category as meat, and they become our food. Now, important thing here is, the most fundamental thing here is the cell, right? We start with the cell and we get the tissue, right? That is the way we are producing meat. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about animal cells and how meat originates from cell, and what kind of cells are there in meat. Is it okay? If you look into a meat, the animal meat, chicken meat, or let us say beef or pork, so we have three types of meat: skeletal, three types of muscles: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscles. Skeletal muscle is basically the muscle, let us say leg piece and the real red meat what you see, right, and that is skeletal muscle, right. Cardiac muscle is maybe heart muscle, and then we have a smooth muscle. Usually it is a muscle type present in the inner layer of intestine or stomach, and the soft thing is called smooth muscle, and they are not really a abundant thing to eat. But the important thing we eat is skeletal muscle. Do you agree? The important thing we eat is called skeletal muscle. Now I will go and show you little bit about how the skeletal muscle look like, right. This is a chunk of meat. This is a chunk of meat, and this chunk of meat is composed of skeletal muscle, and the muscle is made up of muscle fibers. Muscle is made up of muscle fibers. Muscle fibers are actually a complex structure of protein, right. It is a complex structure of protein. Fibers contains protein. It is also associated with fat, some other cells and other things, mainly composed of protein, let us say 90% of protein and 10% of fat and something like that. So it is also called as myofibrils, right, muscle fibers or myofibrils. Now just look into this structure. It is a very beautiful structure. It clearly shows how the muscle fiber looks like in a meat, right. It composed of this muscle fiber, which is covered by this blue color sheet, can you see, and that is called endomysium. These are connective tissue. They are covered by an endomysium, a smooth layer around them, right, and it is made up of collagen. You know muscles contains collagen, right. It contains endomysium, and these muscle fibers are bundled together. Individual muscle fibers are separated by endomysium, and they are bundled together to form a structure called fascicle. Fascicle is nothing but a bundle of numerous muscle fibers, right, and these bundles are separated by another connective tissue called perimysium. Can you see the green thing here? Multiple bundle of muscle fibers are separated by a structure called perimysium, right, and everything is surrounded by epimysium. Is it clear? The muscle fiber is a complex structure. It is surrounded by a tissue called endomysium, and multiple muscle fibers are bundled together. They are called as fascicle, and fascicles are surrounded by perimysium. Basically perimysium is the one that separates muscle fiber bundles, and the entire structure is surrounded by another tissue called epimysium, right. It looks very complicated, right. The small piece of meat what you are eating contains all this structure. In fact, these muscle fibers are made up of two kinds of protein, actins and myosins, and they are actually very structured networks of proteins, and that at the end of the day together everything gives you that fibrous nature when you eat meat. Meat is fibrous. That is something we really want. Not all meat, I am talking about chicken meat, meat, not fish meat, okay. They are very fibrous in nature, and that is because of muscle fibers. Am I clear? Now we want to recreate this structure. Remember, we want to recreate this structure to get the fibrous structure. One thing I am telling you that it is not easy. It is not one type of structure. Muscle fiber is not just like a single fiber. It is association of multiple things. There is a lot of connective tissues are involved here. That gives you the juiciness. There are some fat molecules are also associated inside. That gives you some other taste. So it is a complex thing. Make sense? This is the structure of muscle fiber. Now Let's take a little bit macro structure of muscle. This is microstructure. You can only observe it in, let's say, an ultra microscope, right, or in some electron microscope. But if you look into the macro structure that you see in your naked eye, right, they call it as lean meat. Some people call it as red meat, right. Different types of meat are available. When you cut, let's say, a pork piece, you can see multiple layers, right. A red layer is supported by a white layer or colorless layer. Basically, you have a meat enriched with red blood cells, I mean what we call myoglobin, which is red color in color, right. And we also have a meat which is not that red in color, and then we have in between fat layers also. So, it is very complicated macro structure also. This individual thing inside is made up of this one, right. It is not just this one, the whole structure is made up of several layers, several interfaces containing different types of muscle, right. For example, white portion contains more 75% glycolytic fibers and 17% of muscle fat, right, and red portion contains only 6.6 about fat and 23% of glycolytic fibers and lot of let us say myoglobin, the red color that is giving. So, basically the macro structure of muscle is also very complex, make sense. So, we need to recreate this structure somehow from this one to this one. Now, I am showing the degree of complexity for you. Now, this is the structure of let us say fibers in chicken or like in pork or in beef. If you can take a fish as an example, fish has a different texture, do you agree? Fish texture is very different than those who have eaten fish, they understand, than the chicken texture. And there the muscle tissues are associated in a very different way. So, when you want to recreate muscle of a fish, you need to think in differently, because their structure, their association is different than the other meat. If you want to recreate let us say shellfish, if you want to recreate for example prawn or shrimp, shrimp has a very different structure, do you agree? It is different than the fish, it is more hard and it is having a very different fibrous nature. So, we need to think lot of things here to get that structure similar to the real meat. Lot of things are associated. Now, we need to get this structure. This is my petri dish, for example. I will take one cell to begin with, and I need to get this one. Of course, I will supply all the media I need, all the nutrients I will supply, but from one single cell, I need to get the meat. A meat is not one type of cell, the meat is of different types of cells. Meat is not one type of cell, meat is different types of cells. We have fat producing cells, we have protein producing cells, fibers, right. We have some other kind of cells, adipose tissues, right. We have fibroblasts, skin producing type of tissue, many things we need. So, how do we get from where to start, which particular cell to choose to recreate this meaty structure, and that again requires little bit knowledge of cell biology. Okay. I will just briefly discuss the cell biology things to choose which particular types of cells we can choose to recreate a meaty structure. Remember, meat is not one type of cell. Okay. There is a class of cells called totipotent cell or totipotent cell. Have you heard about this one in biochemistry? Okay. Cell biology or molecular biology, biochemistry, they always teach this one. Even in botany lectures they teach totipotenti. There are certain cells, they have a capacity to divide and proliferate and differentiate to become an organism at the end of the day, right. There are some cells, they have the capacity to divide, differentiate to become an entire system, right. Can you give me an example?
In human, liver cells are having capability to.
Liver cells? Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay, livers I am not sure, but liver cells I am not very sure, you might be correct. I haven't heard so. Oh, liver
Because
cell.
people who are going through the surgeries, like they are having some problem in livers, they can cut the liver, then liver is having the
That's a good thing, but they cut the liver and take the small tissue or small cells of liver. They can recreate the liver, but they cannot recreate heart from that. So that is not totipotent. The stem cells, right? Totipotent cells are those, stem cells are also coming in this section. I'll come back to that one. There are those you can recreate into new organism. For example, zygotes, right? The fertilized cells, right? Egg and sperm, when they fertilizes, we can recreate a human being, we can recreate an pig, we can recreate an animal, right? So they are totipotent. That means those individual cells have the capacity to become a system, complete system, composed of eyes, heart, lungs, and everything. And those are called totipotent cell. I'll come back to your point. Totipotent. Is it clear? And usually, all the are not totipotent. Zygotes are totipotent, but there are some plant cells, they are totipotent. That means you can take one plant, one set of plant cells, you can create the entire plant out of them, including leaf, shoot, root, bark, everything. If you study biotechnology, they teach this in the lab, what we call plant tissue culture. Have you heard about it? Plant tissue culture, they talk about all these things. There are some plants, there are some plant cells, they have the capacity to become totipotent. That means from one cell you can produce the entire plant. Animals, no. You can't take my skin cell, you can't produce Mahesha back, right? It's not possible. But does that make sense? So animals, it's only one, like zygotes, the fertilized egg, they are totipotent, not everything. Then we have a pluripotent cells. Pluripotent cell is nothing but they can differentiate into some types of body. That means, for example, just to give an example, that not necessarily from everything, but most of the things can be produced from pluripotent, just to keep it in a very, very simple terms. Okay? And then we have a multipotent cells. Basically, pluripotent cell is also multipotent cells. They can differentiate and form multiple types of tissues. For example, in this case, you take a heart as an example. Heart contains cells rich in protein, maybe some cells rich in fat, right? And to create, for example, you're talking about liver, right? We need to find out a pluripotent cell that can become an organ, because an organ contains multiple types of cell. Maybe there is a nerve cells are present, maybe there is a fat cells are present, maybe there is a protein rich fibers are present. So they are multipotent cells. From one cell you can produce different types of cells. That's called multipotent cell. Then we have a nullipotent or unipotent. Nullipotent is different. Then I think there is a problem with my animation here. We have a unipotent cells. That means when they divide, they will become only that type of cell. They will not become another type of cell. Does that make sense? They are unipotent. Now the totipotent cells are those, they can become an organism. Pluripotent cells, they can become organism, but some limitations are there. Then you have multipotent cell, they divide and differentiate, can become different types of tissues. Then you have a unipotent cell, when they divide, they will become the same thing. Different thing is not possible. Now, I have to take a cell and I want to get meat. Which type of cell would you choose? Just think about it. I have talked about all different types of cells and their capacity to divide and proliferate and become new thing. Which type of cell would you choose to create an animal kind of meat? I told about meat is complex in the previous slide. Which one would you choose? Totipotent cells?
If we need suppose lean muscle, so then if we
Loudly,
need,
please. Yeah.
if we need suppose specific meat like lean muscle, then we need some specific cells.
Yeah.
So unipotent may be, but pluripotent in muscle there are number of these cells. Pluripotent may be because in this we can get organ. So pluripotent may be another.
May required.
Yes,
Yes, makes sense. So any other answer? Any other answer? Would you he's telling that you are welcome to use unipotent cells. If you just want a protein rich matrix, I don't care about other things, I just want protein fibers now. Maybe I'll go with unipotent cell. And he's also telling that I would also go for pluripotent cell, because sometime I need protein, a small amount of fat, and it's not just one type of protein containing structure. I need different types of protein containing structures. I need these fibrils, I need these connective tissues, I need fibroblasts, I need some extra flavor. Then I was thinking I need to have a cell that is capable of producing all these things. Then I would go for pluripotent cell. You are welcome to go for totipotent cell. It has its own advantages and disadvantages. You need to find a fertilized egg to get those everything that you need. Maybe inside petri dish, it's maybe difficult to have an entire organism. Then you think the complexity. Here I have given a right answer. Depending on what do we need at the end of the day, choose the right cell type to start with, and that is called seed cell, and they belongs to stem cell family, right? Seed cell. Makes sense? Is it clear? We need not use all type of cells. We can use a particular type of cells to create a meat structure depending on the end product that we need. I'm going to talk about which one people often use in the next coming slides. Is it clear? Any question? Until now, what we realized that meat is a complex structure containing different types of cell. If I want to recreate a meat structure, I need to take a particular type of cell that is able to divide and differentiate. Dividing means nothing but 1 becoming 2, 2 becoming 4, 4 becoming 8, and that is called dividing, right? Differentiation is nothing but after dividing, they need to become different types of tissues, different types of cells. That's called differentiation, right? Both division and differentiation is important to create the meaty structure. Is it clear? Now, those are the stem cell you're talking about. You mentioned about the stem cells. These are the seed cells are capable of producing different types of cells. When we say meat, which type of things we actually need at the end of the day? This is my seed cell. Imagine this is my seed. Which type of cells we do need at the end of the day? One is important thing is that we need muscle cell, because that contains myosin and microfibrils and all these things are present there. So we really need it, fundamental. Anything else we need?
For fat cell. Fat cell is also required for marbling.
Yes, exactly. The fat cell is important because meat is not just proteins, it's fat. So fat cells are extremely important because that also gives you the structure and juiciness. Anything else?
The bone cells, these blood cells.
Blood cells perhaps important because some people like to eat meat that is red meat. Maybe we need red meat, red cells containing cells. Anything else? Maybe we need epithelial cells because they are skin type of cells. So we might need that. Some people love chicken with skin, some people love chicken without skin, right? And maybe that we need. Then, do we need sex cells? Might not be necessary, right? They are very minor portion of a given body, not rich in proteins, and it's not actually a food. We don't need that one. So immune cells do we need? Immune cells might not be necessary on a nutritional point of view. I have no idea whether that is important for them, the animal cells to grow in the petri dish. It might be necessary, I have no idea. On a nutritional point of view, we don't need immune cells. Do you agree? Yes. Nervous cells?
Not required.
We don't want when they are growing, when you touch the meat, it should not become like this, right? Right? It just grow. It should not give any actions for us. It should not scare us, right? So we might not need a nervous cells because it's also a small portion of a given meat. So we might not need nervous cell. Now, is it clear? We actually need, coming back to her question, if she mentioned that we might need a totipotent cell, we might not need a totipotent cell because we don't need everything in most cases. Maybe pluripotent cell is sufficient because it can differentiate into multiple things, not necessarily everything. Am I clear? Or multipotent cell is also enough. Or you can say unipotent. I just want muscle, nothing else. you go for unipotent cell. Depending on the need, you select the cells type you need. An important characteristics of this cell type is that the first thing is they should be immortal. We are not immortal, right? We die. Our cells die. But when we die, our cells die because of the proteolytic activity inside the cell. They kicks in, all the life is gone, cells are dead. But when we are alive, if we take our tissue, they are living tissue, right? And one cell become 100 cells, and though from 100 cells you can pick one more cell, it can become 100 cells. From those 100 cells you can do one more 100 cells. So this will be maintained unlimited number of times. You can do unlimited number times of subculturing of the cells. That's the beauty of certain cells. Some animal cells will die after 100 cycles, 200 cycles, 300 cycles, 3000 cycles, but some might not die. They may be forever. For example, if I'm not wrong, cancerous cells, they can divide and go on. But it's important to have cells which is immortal. At least we need to reculture them several hundred times. That's an important thing to have a property. The second thing is proliferative ability, means they have to divide and differentiate to become new thing. And the third thing is that they should be independent of serum. I'll get back to you that later. Serum is a nutrient that we're adding to the media to cells to proliferate, but it's nice to have a serum free media, because serum is expensive and it's not very ethical. I'll get back to you that later. So these are the characteristics we need. Now, it's not just creating a bunch of cells, we need to create a structure, because structure produces texture. Food is not just cells, food is not just proteins, food is a structure, food is a texture, and then we have another degree of complexity. Food is a very dimensional system, right? If you take a chicken as an example, take a drumstick as an example, it starts with like this, right? Just take a drumstick as an example. This is the drumstick. Okay, it has a shape, right? My sister's son always likes drumstick compared to the other piece of the chicken. It's his love. He likes to hold it in the bottom and then he wants to tear it off. My sister's another son likes a small nuggets, chicken nuggets. It's his preference. So we human beings want not just proteins, we need the shape. That is very important. That's unfortunate, not unfortunate thing, but we are built like that one. So it's very complex 3D structure we need to recreate protein, just creating a piece of muscle, right? Think about the complexity. But it's very important to know that it's not always necessary that we need that one. Okay, we don't have to have always this very complex 3D structure. Just to give this nice example from GFI. GFI is an institute, extremely nice institute to get more information about alternatives. I always recommend you guys to go and visit this website. They have all the beautiful information you need on alternatives. Okay, GFI. It's an organization. Okay, what I'm telling is that it's not always necessary to get these complex structures, right? It's not always necessary. Just to give one example, you take hot dog as an example. Hot dog has this meaty thing. It does not have a structure. It has a structure, but not complicated like this one. Is it complicated like this one? It's just a meat, muscle tissues are scrambled together and pushed through a kind of orifice, and then you get a hot dog, right? Maybe they are filled in intestinal tissue or some other things, but you will get a hot dog, but it does not have a structure in according to me. The only structure is like this one, that's it. And it does not have any definite structure inside that meat. It just mashed things together. Do you agree? We don't need the structure here or a complicated structure. Then we can go a little bit higher degree of complication. Take minced beef. Then you need that minced, this is minced layers of muscle tissues we need, right? Little bit complicated, but not as difficult as a leg piece or a drumstick, right? Then we go little bit more complicated, what we call steak fajitas, and you have a little bit more structure now, right? This is very soft, do you agree? And this is not that soft. This is little bit hard and it is more fibrous now. Then you need another level of structure, texture you need to develop. Now we go to the real meat, let's say steak. Often people use in Americas and Europe. We don't eat that much steaks in India. So we eat steaks. It's very, very complicated, right? You know the beauty of shape. There is a red layer. There is a white layer. Can you see? Right? And it's more hard, right? It's more juicy and it has a definite structure and people actually seek for it. A high quality steak should contain all that they think they need. Juiciness, fibrous nature, color, texture, flavor, everything we need. Is more complicated. So the degree of complication is increasing in this direction, and now depending on the muscle type cells we use, we can create different types of structure. Now going back to Asta's question, do we need a 3D printing? We might need a 3D printing to get this shape at the end of the day. We might not need 3D printing just to create a hot dog. We just need a bunch of cells. Make sense? So depending on the things we need, the complexity increases. Now I am going to talk about how exactly these things are produced today. Is it boring? Is it boring? No. Okay, now you will explain me. Okay. So I have a petri dish. I will take one type of cell and I will keep it here, right? Now you will explain me. At the end of the day, I need a stick. This is my stick. Okay. At the end of the day, I need a stick. Okay. What are the processing I would do, or how do I create that stick structure? Yeah, give her a mic. The first, go back step by step. What will be the first immediate step?
First, we have to give the nutrients for the cell to proliferate.
Okay, now imagine I don't have a cell. Let's begin with I don't have a cell. What is the first step?
First, we have to create the cell. First
we can't create a cell. We are not God. We can't create life. That's the only thing human being cannot do at the moment, right? Mike, yeah.
So first of all, if we take any cell from any organ, we have to do the analysis of cell, whether this cell is free from any passage or characteristics apart from that.
What he is telling that the first step, Arthur is telling that first step is create a cell, but she corrected her that impossible to create a cell, get a cell from somewhere. That's the first step. And he is telling that get a proper cell that is free of something, that is devoid of something, but this has some properties that we need. Okay, those cell types I have already mentioned. So get a cell. Now you guys are done. What is the second step? So I got a cell, I put it on the petri dish. What will be the second step? Yeah, just pass. Somebody has to volunteer to pass the mic as per Gian guidelines. So yeah.
We have to culture it.
We have to culture it, right? The second step is that this is the first step, and the second step is that we put the cell here. Somehow we need to make it into more number of cell, and that is called culturing. How do we culture it?
By giving nutrient medias.
So second step is that culture it by giving media. Media is nothing but things containing nutrients. Now can somebody explain what kind of nutrients does potentially we need? Just to think about it. What kind of nutrients we need? Sarana Jyoti, do you have an answer for this?
Growth promoting factors like protein, carbohydrates.
Exactly. She is telling that growth promoting factors like essential things, like we need some proteins, we need some amino acids, right? We need some growth factors. You must have studied in biology, growth factors, hormones, right? Because animals have so many, then we have development in our body, right? So we need hormones, we need growth factors, we need amino acids. Anything else? Anything else do we need to add to media? We maintain a proper temperature. So, animal cells usually grow at 37 degrees Celsius because humans are 37, body temperature is 37. I am not saying that every time we use 37, but 37 is kind of a temperature we can use. So, we maintain a proper condition, atmosphere, so that the cell can eat the nutrient and grow and proliferate. Okay? That will be the second stage. What will be the third stage?
Sir, if temperature, then can pH also be a factor?
Yeah, of course, the pH is also important. For example, the body pH is how much? Physiological pH. What is the physiological pH?
6 point something.
6.7, right? So, I am not sure whether tissue culture they use 6.7. I don't remember myself. I never grown cultured meat myself, just to let you know. I have done tissue culture because I have a bachelor's degree in biotechnology. So, we did at least the lab work to grow meat on a plate. At that time, I never thought about, well, I am going to eat that in one fine day. We wanted to recreate a tissue. That was a laboratory experiment, but just in 5 days, right? I don't know the pH, but pH is important. Okay? Yeah. Anything else? Okay, now I have cells. Now they are right becoming 1000. Next what? Then what? What is the third step we need? She has a fantastic point to mention.
As they are proliferating, so we have to give them a kind of dye system or a mold system so that they can grow it in that particular shape only, and the final shape will be
yeah, what she is telling that now
as
cells are dividing, they are randomly dividing everywhere, maybe they are becoming like a sponge, right? That we don't need, and she is telling that we need to give them a direction to grow, so they get the shape that we want at the end of the day. So, to do that we need to give a supporting system for them, right, and that is called scaffolds. Very good point. We need to give them a scaffold, but please note that animal cells have a property to grow, that they love to attach to something and grow. They do not want to grow flying or floating. They want to attach to something, that is a property of animal cells. So, then they want to grow, right. So, we need to provide and encourage and adhering substances, and that is called scaffolds, and the scaffold can be shaped so that we get the end shape as well. Okay. But that is the fourth thing, right, and third one is missing. What is happening here? We have given one cell and it is becoming the same type of 1000 cells. What is the missing step? If I need, let us say I need to have a meat. What's that?
If something is missing there, like we need what we talked about, stem cell from cell, we need to cells for the red, need RB.
Exactly. So, what she is telling that I am having one type of cell, but if you need a tissue, for example, the whole muscle thing, other types of cells also in that particular matrix, right. Now, that is called differentiation, right. Now, the cell has to differentiate, and for differentiating we might change the media, or we add something, or we remove something, and one type of cell is now becoming different types of cell. That is called differentiation. Okay, that is the third step, and during the second and third step we have the scaffold. Just to tell, I will tell that later. What is the last step? What is the last step? I need my stick on my plate now. What is the last step? Harvesting. You harvest the cells, harvest the structure, right, that is the last step. But another last step, that is a good point. After harvesting, what we can do? We can do cooking, we can add flavoring agents, right, we can change the shape in a different way depending on what we need. So, that is again we come back to our original thing, what we do with the type of food product, right. Basically, we can still change the structure, nature of the food by adding additives, flavorings, colorants and so on. Now you guys are clever.
Basically, so basically processing as per our need.
Yes, basically you will do the post processing as per our need. Fantastic word, sentence to make. Is it clear? Now you are already clever. I don't have to teach the next half an hour. You know how to do, how to get the lab. You just have to find a cell somewhere and a petri dish and some media and some scaffolds. Oh my God, it's becoming more complicated. I don't get it right easily. It's a little bit complicated, and let's see how exactly we produce. This is something you explained me already. I don't take this slide, okay? This is something more illustrative and nicer slide. It clearly shows what you just mentioned. Find a cell from an animal you need or you like or you want. Then the phase steps, you grow them in a big bioreactor, not necessarily because we are a large scale, right? And then what Asta was telling, give them a shape. They have to bind into something. That's what we call. And then what she was, based on the, you do the processing. That's the 4 different phases we have to get cultivated or cultured meat. Now I'm going to explain you one by one these steps. Listen to me carefully. If there is any question, ask. Okay. The first phase is that cell isolation. We need to find the cell that is able to divide and differentiate to become the meat biomass, right? How do they select it? There is a lot of procedures. The first one is directly taking from a living organism. You can take a stem cell from cow. There are some bone marrow has some stem cells, right? A fertilized egg you can take from cow to create a stem cell to have a tissue, right? You are welcome to take live animals. It's also expensive procedure because you can't take, if it's just a unipotent cell, what he was telling, what Mohammed was telling. So basically, you just want muscle fiber. I don't care anything. Maybe you can just take a unipotent cell. Maybe it's easy. But I need usually multipotent cell. I need the cell, muscle fibers, fat tissues, connective tissues and so many things. Then I usually need a multipotent cell. We usually find what we call induced pluripotent cell. That means a pluripotent cell we induce by some introducing some genes so that it will differentiate into something else, numerous other things. So usually it is taken from live animals. But please note that you don't have to kill the animal. You don't necessarily have to kill the animal. But the problem is if you kill the animal will die and quickly cells will also die if you don't harvest the cell quickly. If you don't isolate the cells quickly, they will also die because of the proteolytic activities. Usually, if you look about why we are going for animal based cultured meat is for animal welfare. It's not a good idea to kill and create, right? So basically they give anesthesia to the animal and then they take the tissue. But we will also slaughter because only one time they are doing. They can slaughter and they can take. Clear? The age of the animal, the sex of the animal, everything matters. I will not go on to that one. So many things they will, and the health of the animal, everything matters. They will always take a healthy cell. If you don't want to slaughter or take from animal, there are some cell banks. Basically, they have stored stem cells before they have taken it from another animal or something. You are welcome to take from the cell bank. Is it clear? Yeah. But once they take the cells, it's not an easy step. Please note that it's not taking a cell in a forceps and putting on a petri dish. It's not that simple. Because those stem cells are now covered by so many other things. We don't need so many other things because they are contaminants in our cell now, right? We need to clean them, we need to wash them, we need to differentiate them. There is a lot of steps involved and that is done in the petri dishes or culture flask. Am I clear? It's not just picking one and putting on another thing, no. It has a lot of steps to cleaning, washing and removing the unwanted debris and getting the right cell that you need. And as he mentioned, it's very important to make sure that that is a viable and potent cell. Again, you need to analyze them. Am I clear? Any question here? Okay, good. And this is something you don't have to read it now, But the cell types we use is these kind of properties are required. You mentioned, I showed you, okay, I don't have that diagram. I showed you different types of cells here. This one here, totipotent, pluripotent and something. And depending on the requirement, we use different types of cells. Usually embryonic cells can be used. They are the fertilized egg because they are actually multipotent. They can become into different organs, right? And induced pluripotent cells are also used. And for muscles, especially for meat, they use muscle satellite cells. Basically, they are capable of producing more essential muscle cells because that contains the muscle fibers. They are able to produce muscle fibers, and they are also able to take this called fibroadiponic progenitors. They can become fat cells. Adipose, if you really want to have a fat in this one, you can take adipose. You are welcome to take fibrous fibroblast if you want to have I think the fibroblasts are the skin cell producing cells, right? I forgot. I think it's their skin cell producing type of cells. So you are also welcome to take mesenchymal stem cells because they have the beauty to become muscle, fat, bone marrow and so on. What I want to tell you, the take home message is that you are welcome to take different types of cell depending on what do you need. Probably the pluripotent cells are most welcome to take simply because they can become a meat that should essentially contain muscle fibers, adipose tissue which is fat tissue and fibroblasts. So these are the three major things we need in meat, and depending on that you can take any type of cell you need. Is it clear? Now we are coming back to the question, we need to produce them in large quantity, and that is called cell proliferation. As I said, in industrial scale we don't do it on a petri dish. In laboratory we can do it on a petri dish or a culture flask, but in industrial scale they are done it in a bioreactor. We are talking about a big bioreactor. Very big bioreactors are available nowadays. We are talking about 20,000 liter size, right? Like a tank on your terrace, right? That's only 1,000 liter. Now talk about 20,000 liter. So huge bioreactors are available. You need to optimize the process, of course, and those can be used to improve the number of cells or increase the number of cells. Now the important thing here is that the bioreactor, the second most important thing is that nutrients of the media. You already mentioned they need proteins, they need carbohydrates, they need other things, hormones, they need growth factors. So many things are present. Please note that this media is way more complicated than the media that you use in your microbiology laboratory. This media is way more complicated than the media you are using in the microbiology laboratory, because it is not easy to help an animal cell to divide and differentiate. You need lot of aids for them compared to a bacteria. Bacterial cells are very crazy cells, they just want to live somehow, right? Animal cells just want to die somehow, right? So this is the problem. So we need to help them. You need to help them to proliferate. Now, one of the important media component we can add is called serum. You know, have you heard about serum? There is something called blood. Have you heard about? The red thing in our body is called blood, right? And blood contains apparently two components, serum and plasma. Red contains, okay, red blood cells are in this one. There is something called serum in the blood, and that serum is actually a mixture of nutrients. It contains so many good nutrients that cell can eat them and proliferate. How do we get serum? From blood. Where blood comes from? Huh? How do we get blood? How can we get blood? Come on. Can you buy blood in a supermarket? No. Can you buy blood in blood bank? Yes. Forget about human blood bank, I am talking about animal blood bank. Okay, you can buy blood from blood bank, animal blood bank, if that exists, doesn't exist, of course. From where they get that blood? That's my question. From living animals. That's the answer I am expecting. Come on, don't be so dumb. Blood comes from living animal. Now I am talking about cultured meat. I don't want to kill animal. Am I sustainable now? Am I following the rules? No, right? If I take blood or serum from a living animal, it becomes not comes within the animal welfare stuff. Am I clear? And serum is so expensive, extremely expensive, because usually that is taken from the uterus of a cow. Cow has a small uterus, right? And you imagine if I want this much amount of serum, how much blood I can collect from uterus and then serum, which is a very expensive and complicated process to get a small amount of serum, and the whole thing becomes super expensive, and whole thing can become less animal welfare stuff. Is it clear? So serum is not a go, but if you find serum, it's a fantastic nutrient. Usually serum is also used, unfortunately, but it's nice to have a serum free media. If you don't add serum, you need to add components present in serum artificially. You need to add hormones, you need to add growth factors, you need to add proteins, you need to add vitamins. Everything should be added separately, one by one. Am I clear? So serum free media is recommended, and there are certain governments have instruction saying that if you use serum, you can't sell it in my country. Am I clear? There is a government regulations also in certain regions of the world that you can't culture with serum. Make sense? Any question there? Okay. But nutrients are expensive, things are becoming more expensive. Now once you have supplied the media to cells and they start growing, but as I said, animal cells likes to attach to a surface. You need to give them an anchorage, a body to attach, and that is called scaffolds, and different types of scaffolds are available. For example, the one of the things we have is scaffold is clear? It's basically a thing where the cells will attach and then they proliferate. Okay? It's very important to know that these scaffolds should be biocompatible. Do you agree? Scaffold should be biocompatible. You cannot use toxic scaffolds, because at the end of the day we will make burger out of it. So we can't use it. And they can be porous or they cannot be porous. Porous may be helpful because then the nutrient can pass through these beads and then they can go and attach to the cells, and cells can easily eat the media. Make sense? Is it clear? And porous can be of different shape, what Asta was telling. If you want a particular shape, maybe you can find a particular type of porous with that particular shape, so you can use it. So usually different types of scaffolds are available. 4 types are called microcarriers, porous, fibers and hydrogels. Microcarriers are very commonly used. They are small beads. Usually they are also porous, right? You can add into the media together with the cells, and the cells will attach and they grow. Okay? Then we have fibers. Basically fibers are elongated, this one. They have a small holes, or they are also porous, or maybe having a channel, and the cells can grow on top of them. You can get fibrous structure. Okay? Then we have hydrogels. They are special ones. They can absorb more water, the hydrogels. So you can use different types of scaffold. There is a huge research on getting the right type of scaffold. And after you were asking about 3D printing, you can use a scaffold which is 3D printed. At the end of the day, you can get a shape you need, but it's much more complicated. Why? Because if you want to get a shape of stick, you can easily make a 3D printed shape, but the problem is the cell has to grow in the same region properly. You need to have a meat, muscle fibers, fat cells and red blood. This is very complicated, but people are working on that one. Okay? Now if you are coming back to the characteristics of the scaffold, the most important thing is that they are biocompatible. Okay? They are not toxic. The second thing is that it is also possible to eat scaffolds. For example, you have a bioreactor, you added scaffold, this is my scaffold. Okay? Cells are growing on the scaffold or in between the scaffold or inside the scaffold, whatever it is, right? 2 things can be done. He was telling you have to harvest it, Harvesting is nothing but removing the cells from the bioreactor and also from the scaffolds. But some instances you do not have to remove them from the scaffolds. You can eat cells and also scaffolds together. You get a structure now. Am I clear? That is the reason why scaffolds can also be an edible component. For example, celluloses, hemicelluloses, pectin, and those kind of fibrous structure can be used to create scaffold. Now we can go back to our sustainability phenomenon. I extracted proteins from microalgae, a lot of fibers are left. Maybe I can use that fibers to create scaffold here. Nothing is wasted. Am I clear? So we can use natural fibers to create scaffolds. Am I clear? Because scaffolds are also edible. And then important thing is that we need to talk about cell differentiation. That means inside the scaffold now the cells are growing. They are rapidly multiplying, but they are not differentiating. Division is different, differentiation is different. Division is basically 1 becoming 2, 2 becoming 200, that is division, but we need to have a proliferation. That means that now one type of cell should become another type of cells. For example, we need to have some muscle fibers, also adipose, we need to have some fat cells. We also need to have some fibroblast. So we need to have multiple. Now we need to tell the cells enough dividing, now you differentiate. Am I clear? They are continuously dividing to same type of cells. If you just let them grow, they just become the same thing, big biomass. We do not want that. We need to become them in different types of cells now. Okay? That we need to induce, and that is called differentiation, induction. That can be done in many ways. One of the things I read was that you need to reduce the growth factors, because growth factors help them dividing, and you have to increase the signaling molecules. You need to signal, okay, now it is the time to differentiate. So you can add them. Basically what they do is that they change the media. If you change the media components, they will forget about division, they will start differentiation, okay, because that new media has new components. Now they are realized, oh, enough dividing now, let us differentiate. Am I clear? You can also welcome to use GMO cells, apparently they add, because they containing some probably a signaling stuff. So you add a small amount to the reactors, and then they will help, they will send signals, okay, now let us differentiate. But if you add GMO cells, you can't sell it in some part of the world. Let us say European Union, they have strict guidelines on GMOs. GMO means genetically modified organisms, where the DNA is changed, they add a foreign DNA, okay. You can also change scaffolds. Apparently they can also, they were growing on one type of scaffold, now you change the scaffold to another type, then they realize, they wake up, let us differentiate. Am I clear? The last step is simple. We all, ask us a question.
He has a question.
Sir, as the texture and sensory properties are important for any food product, when we add these scaffolds to meat, are not they contributing to texture and sensorial properties?
Yes, positively or also negatively. They can positively contribute to the texture, because if you add let us say soybean based, you can also make scaffolds from plant proteins also, right, and they are more fibrous already. So you might get another fibrous structure, it might be positive benefit, but that is the reason why choosing the scaffold is very important. They can positively or negatively affect the final product, and there is a huge research on that one. For example, this is the slide. I did not go in detail, but you are welcome to read this paper. They talk a lot about what type of scaffolds to choose and what type of materials to choose in a scaffold.
As meat is not consumed as such, it is always processed.
Yeah.
What is the role of are these scaffolds as a function of processing? Is there any study conducted on that?
What kind of processing?
Like what are the effects of processing on the scaffolds?
Yeah. I think this is a growing thing. Please note that we do not find equal number of articles on like soybean processing compared to scaffold processing, but this is not new. That is why I recommend you read through this paper, and basically they have written how the scaffolds are produced and what type of materials can be used in scaffold, and as you asked that, okay, depending on the scaffold, what is the fate of the end product. So there are some studies, but I haven't digged into details, just to let you know.
We are processing the meat, cultured meat with scaffolds. During processing, they are detached from these scaffolds. They will not, they are not able to maintain the structure or the shape.
You're right.
They will just dilute in the this any syrup like that.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. Just to let you know, it's extremely complicated piece of research to do here, because food is very complex. Getting texture is another complexity. Now they are attached on a scaffold. Once you cook, they might come out. They may attach much more hardly, you never know, and they all have a positive and negative benefit to the end product, and that has to be systematically studied for each type of cells and each type of scaffold. There is no straightforward answer, but what we know that using scaffold is really beneficial. It will help you the cells to divide and differentiate, plus it can also give you a new texture and shape to the final product. And I am also telling that it is not always that they harvest along with scaffold. There are methods to harvest devoid of scaffold. For example, they use enzymes, they use thermal treatment, so that the scaffold is separated from the cells or the tissues. So you do not necessarily have to use scaffolds in the food product. It depends on the type of application. Am I clear?
Yes.
So I am not telling that scaffolds we will eat every time. No, they remove scaffolds also most often. Okay. All right. So now we come back to the last phase of cultured meat. Once you have this bioreactor containing scaffold and scaffold attached to the meat cells and fat cells and fibers and so on, you have two options. Oh, I am coming back to the same thing what I was telling you, that either you harvest along with the scaffold, or you remove the scaffold and remove the cells, right. To remove the tissues and cells, they use enzymes, thermal mechanical methods. Enzymes you can use proteases, and thermal they heat it so that the attachment is removed, and mechanical methods you can just shake them, then they detach from the scaffold, right. There is a lot of ways to this one. For harvesting, you can sediment the cells, you can centrifuge the cells, you can harvest them. There is a lot of, and you can also do filtration after centrifugation, because you need to remove the cells from the media components. We do not want to eat media, we do not want to drink serum, we just want to eat the cells. Am I clear? So harvesting is also important. And that is not end of the story. In most cases, you get a meat which is like this, without any structure, shape and so on. Again you need to give them shape and structure. Again you come back to our own plant-based world. You are welcome to use transglutaminase enzyme that can do more cross-linking. You are welcome to extrude these fat and muscle fibers together, right. You are welcome to add some colorants, you are welcome to add some more fat, you are welcome to add umami flavors, aspartic acid and glutamic acid, right. It is not that you get the end product from the bioreactor, no, it is not necessary. It has to be again processed to get the final structure, maybe minimally processed compared to plant proteins. Am I clear? And then you get your product that you need. You are welcome to cook and eat. Do not eat raw. To characterize the structures, we have lot of analytical techniques. I do not tell that, just to let you know that it is not a simple research. The microstructure and the macrostructure of these meat, cultured meat, can be evaluated by numerous analytical techniques. At the end of the day, after adding additives, after doing some processing, the cultured meat can look like this. Can you see? It is not bad, right? It is not super bad. It looks like a thin slice of meat. We have a red one, we have a lean meat, we have pink meat, right. So it is possible to produce a meaty texture and flavor using cultured meat. Yes. Swarna Jyoti, yeah.
From a business point of view,
Yeah.
as we have discussed all those serum stuff and all, they are super expensive,
Yeah.
or it's complicated to get the animal tissue cultured.
Yeah.
Is it worth all that chaos?
Good question.
Is
That is
it a
my,
long-term business or the
I'll talk about
consumer
the business. Please note that the business of culture meat is also increasing. It's simply because now we are in the era that we need to have a transition. There is no doubt about it. We need to have a transition. Even if it becomes expensive, we need to have a transition. We can't go for animal based. No. That's a problem. Just because of greenhouse gas emission. You can't match this 99 kilograms of carbon dioxide
So
equivalent.
that only we understand, but will the consumer accept it?
Absolutely. That is called, we need consumer education. I have an exclusive lecture on that one. I'll talk about that. It's growing. It's not going in this direction. It's growing. Consumers are becoming more and more. Now it's on YouTube. People will watch maybe. Some more and more people believe, okay, this is something we need a consumer education, right? That's why education is important, first of all. Then food education, the consumer education is another important thing. Then we need to change our social, economical stuff, right? Because no, I hate insect. I will not eat, I will die rather, I won't eat insect. And that attitude has to be removed, right? But I'm not telling that all our non-vegetarian communities or non-vegetarian communities becomes vegetarian. It's not easy task, right? It's a slow and steady process. But a lot of population in the world are self-becoming vegans and vegetarians. Do you know that, right? They are not driven by the family things. For example, in an Indian context, we are vegetarian not by chance usually, not by choice, it's by chance. Not everyone. There are some exceptions, right? We take it our family lineage. My father was not eating meat, so I will not eat meat. Right? That's how our traditions are built. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? That's how our traditions are built. My ancestors were not eating meat, so I don't eat meat. And then we start blaming meat is bad, I'm like vegetables. It's all because we have been fed like this into our brain. I'm talking about a scientist. Okay? I have another personal feeling. I'll remove that one. I'll talk as a scientist now, right? Our belief for meat is because of our ancestors. We are told that cows are sacred and we should not harm them, but that story does not exist if you come to Europe and America. They love eating beef and, right? In my region, we don't eat beef. We also don't like eating pork because of some, again, religious purpose. But that is not true in Europe and America. They don't care about the religion and this one, because they have been historically eaten beef. Their ancestors were eaten beef, they have eaten beef, they believe I will eat beef. Right? Now I have to have a transition from them. Now you stop eating beef, eat soy. And then they go crazy. Right? Now I'm telling that all my father, for example, he likes fish and meat, right? I can't tell him that now I have studied a research paper and it clearly shows that eating chicken is 66 kilograms carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of chicken, so stop eating chicken. It's not easy. We need to educate them, and it's a slow and steady. There is a lot of havoc, there is a lot of problems, but we need to do that. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
It will benefit.
It will, but we want to have it in short term.
Got it.
That's why the consumer education, the transition is important. That's why the politicians, entire world is going towards plant-based. It's not a simple thing I'm telling. It's actually happening. Trust me. Okay. Now coming back to Swarna, your point only. It's not easy. Yeah. Do we have a question back? Yeah. Yeah.
So why we prefer insect protein? Means we have plant protein, also animal protein. Why we'll go for insect proteins?
Again, because sustainability point of view. I'll mention a few slides about it. Said, I mean, the thing is that as a scientist, as a R&D specialist, we cannot rely on one thing. I cannot rely on soy. Soy is very functional. I cannot rely on only soy because soy can be grown in one particular region of the world. Soy needs more water, and in my region I can't grow soy. I don't have much water. Now I need to buy soy from USA, right? USA, they have to supply to Rourkela, how much money is involved, how much carbon footprint for transportation, it is not traceable, it is not locally ground, lot of problems. In my place, in Sambalpur, I can get locust, I can get insect, that's what the guys were talking about. Why can't I use that? Am I sense? It's mostly because we can't rely on one particular type, we need to rely on multiple different types. You never know, at the end of the day everybody believes that it's only soy is the best one. At the end of the day only insect proteins are the best one. It's completely available throughout the world, everybody eats insect, but it's not happening in 5 years, it maybe requires 100 years, I have no idea, right. So that's the reason why when we do research and development, we don't believe in one type of source. And somebody talked about bamboo shoot. I'll ask why bamboo shoot is only in Sambalpur forest, it's not in Copenhagen, and why would I go for a bamboo shoot to get proteins? That's a wrong attitude, because you never know. It might be important in one particular application, and that's the reason why we need multiple sources. Sustainability point of view plus availability point of view. Make sense?
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Any other question? Okay, now what I am telling is that producing cultured meat is not easy. It's very complicated process. So many steps are involved. And now we need to discuss about what are the challenges associated with cultured meat production, and that will be a group discussion. I talked about how to produce cultured meat. You also mentioned to me, oh, why this is so, looks so difficult. What could be the potential challenges of production and also eating cultured meat? You will have a group discussion. So you will talk to the person next to you, okay, 2 in 2. 2 in 2 means 1 over 1. So you 2, you 2, you 2, you 2, right. If there is a odd number, just make it 3 as a group, okay. I will give you 5 minutes to discuss. We discuss and then we take a break. Is it okay? Yeah. Just discuss, the person sitting next to you, what are the problems of production and consumption of meat, cultured meat. It's okay to make 3 and 3, you can't discuss alone, huh? Okay, the last bench. You join half that side and half this side, you're welcome. Please think about production first and then consumption. Think about all the production steps involved, think about what are the problems you would face there, and then you have meat in hand, think about consumption. All right, is it going good, the discussion? Okay, shall we, you want more time to discuss, few more minutes? Enough? Tired? No. Was it a good discussion? Okay, let's see what you guys have discussed, okay? And after the discussion, we will take a break, okay? So, or you want break first and then discussion? Let's discuss and then take break, okay? So, we will take a break after about 10 minutes, okay? Okay, what did you guys discuss? Please pass the mic, please. Yeah, what did you guys discuss? Please mention which particular thing you discussed, whether it's about production or consumption, okay, or both. Yeah.
Sir, I will discuss 2 points.
Yeah, sure. Like yeah.
So first, it will be difficult to mimic taste and texture of the.
So listen to them. So they are telling that it's difficult to mimic taste and texture. You think it's impossible or difficult?
It is difficult. Sir. And one more thing, contamination chances might be high in case of it.
They saying that there is a contamination chance. What do you mean by contamination?
To get impurities from suppose it when we are cultivating it in a bioreactor.
So when they are, you just hold to your mouth because otherwise it's cannot record. Yeah. So they are telling that when cultivating there might be contamination. What kind of contamination?
Suppose cells might get attached, we are adding scaffolds.
Yeah.
There might be some reactions that might produce some different compounds that are not desirable.
Yeah, they are telling that yeah, it might produce the one we want, but they also produce something unwanted. Yeah, only 3 points per group, okay, because I have to have a homogeneous points. Yeah. 2 points, then after you have one main point.
Last point, then rest will.
Yeah.
There will be the wastage of the bioreactors will be again.
So there is a lot of wastage. Are we really sustainable, right?
Yes.
Because you get a lot of media. I don't know I can reuse media or not, right?
Yes.
Good point. Yes. 1 point, Asta, one important point.
Okay.
If that's remaining, then I will take one more round, and then if they are not covering, we will take it. Is it okay? Yeah.
That's the consumer acceptance, because most of the people who are fond of meat, they like that chewy, fibril texture with the original taste and that. So consumer acceptance might be a big hurdle for this, and relation of the social and ethical issues also can be there, because people like the natural things they are getting from the nature. So it is not something which is from the nature and we are creating in the lab. So there can be social and ethical implication with the consumer acceptance on the basis of that particular texture, desirable things. As we have different types of slaughtering methods, that is jhatka, halal and Jewish method. So it is not basically coming from that slaughtering method.
No.
Right?
So exactly, because we have a particular group of people, they would love to have the animal that has been slaughtered by the same method according to their religious purposes. Would that be met? That's a very good point, right? That's a very good point, because that has to be taken care, because there is a good number of consumers in that particular perception. We have to be careful.
One more thing, raw material we are taking for this cell culturing is somewhat they are coming from the animals only. Right? The serum, or we can say the cell.
The first one is always animal. It is not coming from the plant.
So that is a
I
big
am thinking that can we create an animal cell from plant cell? If that is possible, maybe it's possible. Unfortunately, it is not possible. God must be crazy. So he hasn't done that one.
So using tissue culturing only in NDRI in Karnal, and they have created a cloned cow, Dolly.
Yes. That is something we don't discuss in the classroom. Yes. We can't discuss, of course. That is absolutely unethical if you want to do it. I'm not in the laboratory. Right, welcome to do anything in the lab, but
they have created for something social, functional properties only, parameters. But it can be done like this.
Absolutely, because by cloning, as I said, we can create another Asta sitting next to her. But it's unethical. So by cloning, we can completely create another pig exactly looking like this one, exactly same shape, exactly same properties. But we hit the ethical issues again. So We move on to the next group here. You're welcome to mention the same thing they have discussed, if you have discussed the same thing, but don't go for detail. Try to prioritize something they have not mentioned. Yeah.
So we have thought about we need trained personals.
We need trained personnel because it's not an easy thing, right?
Yeah.
Harvesting soybean is easy. Harvesting soybean is easy.
Even
Harvesting
soybean is
cell culture
cultivation
may
is
be
easy
yeah,
because we have learned it, but for this type of cultured meat,
yeah.
we need initially scientists, then
Yeah.
trained personals to
Yeah.
do, because it's a very complex system.
Absolutely, yeah.
And another things there is no specific regulations or guidelines.
There is no specific regulations and guidelines. Okay, I'll get back to that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And conditions are very specific. In terms of that pH temperature, if it changes for certain reason, then the whole cost will be go in toss.
Absolutely. We are talking about 20,000 liter bioreactor, and I will hire this gentleman to maintain the bioreactor, and that gentleman is sick today and he forgot to press a button. Things might go change, right? It's very difficult to maintain. I agree, this is the process thing. You guys are engineers, you know better than me how things can go wrong in large scale, right? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just giving an example. You are good, huh? I know. Yeah.
So, and the equipments which we use are very complex and hard to operate, so we need training for that.
Yeah, we need trained personnel to operate the big equipment, but that also creates technical jobs, just to let you know. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It could be a positive thing because we think science in two different ways. Like we need highly skilled people, we need semi-skilled people, we also need unskilled people because that's a different job market. I can't educate every single person in the world. Everybody becomes scientists, then who will do cleaning thing, right? So you need to find a balance. Yeah. Good points. I really appreciate that you've taken good points. Let's discuss what you guys discussed. Yeah.
Sir, for production, it will be very expensive.
Yeah.
Like serum, it will be very expensive.
So production is very expensive. Remember, $330,000, right? A chicken costs, let's say, $3 per kilo, $3 to $4 a kilo. I'm talking about dollar wise. And even today, the culture meat can cost, I think, if I'm not wrong, I have a number in one of my slides, maybe 10-fold expensive. But it's not 10,000-fold expensive. It has become 100-fold expensive, it has become 10-fold expensive, it will soon become 5-fold expensive, it will become equal, it might become cheaper. Again, cost is always depending on demand and consumption and production, they're all interrelated. Things become cheaper if more and more people buy that one because they can find alternative solution to make things cheaper. Good point. Any other thing? Yeah.
Okay. So the things we have discussed, they have already covered it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think they have left it. It's the scaffolds vascularization process is too important.
Yes.
If the nutrients can't get delivered properly, then we can't have good quality cultured meat.
Absolutely, because scaffold should be able to penetrate or help the cells to access to the nutrients. So you find how to find, it's a lot of research going on scaffolds. Material scientists can do wonderful research on that one. If you want a porous scaffold, we need a fibrous scaffold, you need non-porous but hydrogel type scaffold. Depending on the application, it's a huge number of research is going on, but scaffolds are important. Things can go wrong there. I agree with you. Yeah.
My point is, the meat comes from the very process.
Yeah.
After very processing techniques.
Yeah.
Is there any health issues?
Absolutely, the health concern, that is something less known.
We eat that protein for our health, no?
Yeah,
If
the body can
too much
create
processed food can be harmful for us.
Absolutely, we never know that there are some digestibility that, just to let you know, apparently
there are some
allergens or something that
there
is
are some additives which
exactly,
are harmful
additives
for us.
because when you harvest the self, of course they try to clean it, but you might get some hormones together with them. You might get some growth factors, but we don't want hormones. So the hormones, we need some hormones because some hormonal therapy, but we don't want to eat excessive hormone, then you might get more skin problems.
It can disrupt our endocrine system.
Exactly, it might disturb our endocrine system. we don't want to eat hormones, right? So there is less evidence on that. Health is the biggest concern because animals might create proteins in a different way in the body. A lab grown meat can synthesize protein in a different way, right?
As the production is costly, then the consumer means the product will also be costly.
Yes, yes, exactly. So we discussed that point. So ingredients are expensive, final products are also expensive. Yeah, any other thing?
And sir, the environmental impact, the energy use.
Yeah, the energy and environmental impact, very good point. Environmental impact plus energy, is it matching? That's very important to know, because at the end goal is nothing but animal welfare plus environment, right? By creating all these things, what is the environmental footprint? There are beautiful articles that we call LCA analysis, life cycle assessment, has been done on the production of lab grown meat, starting from water used for the lab grown meat, ingredient used for the lab grown meat, everything is included in this LCA calculation until you eat it. What will be the carbon footprint? That has been calculated. Apparently, it's not as bad as real meat. It's still sustainable in terms of carbon footprint. Okay, good point. Good point.
In consumption point of view, we can increase the shelf life of the meat if we processed.
Yes, I think you need some processing again, but you need to think about the shelf life. Maybe this is more shelf stable than the real meat, because the real meat will be oxidized, discolorized much faster, because you have a lot of myoglobin, the red pigments, there's a lot of iron, they undergo lipid oxidation. This might be less problematic here, so, but it's a good point. So shelf life can vary depending on what type of meat you are getting, because the real meat is not shelf stable, right? You need to consume it quickly, or you need to put in the refrigerator, otherwise they go wrong, right? Any other point? Good point, very good point. Shelf life. Anything you discussed? Yeah.
So the culture meat should be differentiated, means any negative impact of that meat.
Yeah, you mean during the differentiation process. Yeah. So maybe, yeah, it's important that we get the right type of stem cell. They differentiate into right type of tissues at the end of the day. If they differentiate into something else, we might have some problem. How do we control the differentiation so that they produce right type plus right amount of cells? We need more muscle fibers, we need less fat. We don't have too much fat and less muscle fibers, right? Yes. We need to control differentiation, and that requires optimization. Completely agree with you. Good point, very good point. Yeah.
It requires constant temperature, oxygen and nutrients.
Yeah.
Which can lead to significant energy consumption.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
And the cells that we are using for the cultured meat, we don't know when the cells will get mutate or or get ruptured. So that also
exactly, because we want to use the healthy stem cell. They're healthy enough to grow healthy meat. We have no clue what else would happen if you continuously regrow them, reculture them again and again. I know they are immortal. You can grow from one cell to another continuously, what we call subculturing, reculturing. But at some point something might go wrong. You never know what would happen. Good point. Yeah.
And consumer acceptance is far away thing. First of all, the people who are making the cultured meat, they know how much processing it needs.
Yes.
So first of all, they would not want to consume the meat.
Yes.
So how can they convince the consumer to?
Yeah. But I want to make one important point again and again. It's maybe fourth time I'm making. Processing is important. Don't blame processing ever. Without processing, we can't feed the growing population. Things will spoil next day. Things will spoil in half an hour, right? So processing has to be done. Without processing, nothing can be done. Processing is important to improve the shelf life. Processing is important to reduce the anti-nutrient. Processing is important to improve the digestibility. Processing is important to keep some flavor, Maillard reaction. Processing can be good and bad, but is more good than bad according to me. So processing is by default, but the problem is maybe heavily processing and you don't know what exactly happening.
The artificial proteins or
Yeah,
other things
exactly,
that we
and
are
that
using.
we don't know. I fully agree with you. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Any other thing discussed? The right side people, you guys did not discuss. Is the same thing? No new thing. Good. Yeah.
We all are one group.
You are one group, a very strong last bench. Unity is our strength. That's the thing in the last bench you have observed. They always unite. That's how I've been observing since my school days. They are strong. That's why they sit in the last bench to see. Good.
Considering many of the points already discussed, we have come up with a bit different things. So we have a lot of steps to optimize.
Yes.
So, for which we need food technologists as well as biotechnologists.
Yeah.
So there is a huge scope for research in this field now.
Absolutely, there is a huge scope for R&D, because if you look into this diagram, you see how many expertise we need, what kind of experts we need.
Exactly.
We need cell biologists to find out right type of cell, right?
Yes.
We need tissue engineers to proliferate them. We need media guys, not those newspaper media guys. We need media guys to produce serum free stuff. We need media guys to produce proteins. We are losing the screen. We need people to produce same pH. We need somebody to maintain the bioreactors, right? We need process engineers.
Yes.
We need technologists. We need electricians,
Yes.
right? We need somebody to make a stainless steel metal that is not releasing corrosive substances. We need scaffold engineers, hydrogel makers. We need the final burger makers also. We need chef, right? So the normal chef might not be useful here. He knows how to cook. It's a lot of job and research opportunity.
So there is a good amount of employment opportunities.
Good amount of employment opportunity. If you want to have a job in cultured meat, there's a lot of job available. You can make a startup on this one. Really, I tell you that one. Good, yeah.
Apart from that, sir, we can tweak the consumers' perception using social media and proper advertisement.
Absolutely. I'll come back to that one also in my next lecture. We need social media to say, please note that I'm not an advocate of cultured meat. I'm a scientist. If you make my personal opinion, it's different thing, right? I talk as a scientist when it becomes a teaching session, right? Everybody has their own personal opinion. The opinion has to be changed, right? Or I personally have no clue whether I personally will eat lab-grown meat. Sorry to use this word, lab-grown meat, cultured meat, right? I have no clue whether I personally, but as a scientist, I think it's really good. Sometime mera scientist jagta hai. Sometime my Mahesha will come into play. That's a battle we always have, right?
Right.
Suddenly you become scientist. We think I want to save the environment, and you throw the plastic right next when you go outside, right? We humans are crazy, right? We can't keep our scientist mentality every time. Suddenly we become what I am really, right? Yes. And there is a battle. That's a good point. Yeah.
And so maybe with a good amount of scale up, things can become less costly, and we can use different sort of agri residues and other stuff like processing waste from other streams, from other industries.
Exactly. We can find a cheap media to grow and to cultivate meat. There's a lot of opportunity for research and development to reduce the cost of the entire thing.
Maybe in those cases we can even integrate other techniques like fermentation.
And
we can engineer those bacteria, the other ones, and the microorganisms, so as to specifically give those flavors and texture which we need in our particular
Absolutely. Yeah. Please note that in fact the cultured meat are then fermented.
Yes.
So get the desired extra flavor you want. That's a good point. I missed that actually. Yeah. I think.
And one of the very crucial thing is we need to, after setup of all this, we need to establish with different sort of cleaning and other sort of sanitation practices, because these are very different from the traditional ones.
Absolutely. For after slaughtering the animal, maybe they clean it in a different way. Now they are being grown in bioreactor that contains pipelines, tubings, and so
CIP
things.
and all.
I'm not an engineer though, but you imagine how much thing we have to think about cleaning, because even the cleaning UHT processing system, milk system, it's not an easy thing because you have biofilm formation, blah blah, so many other problems, and how do we maintain that one? So good question.
So just to add on to that, like even we have established systems for dairy like cleaning and all. It's called CIP, clean in place. So apart from like normal hot water, alkali and acid cleaning, which every dairy industry does on their regular basis.
Absolutely.
So even after like concentrated like acid cleaning also, they in a once in a month or maybe we actually need even Tetra Pak systems also. We need to manually open all the plated exchanges and then clean them. I've personally seen them scrubbing with brushes.
Absolutely.
And then again doing the CIP so as to remove those residues.
So the biofilm is the biggest challenge. So it's not because the contamination what you mentioned. You forgot to mention about the bacterial contamination. Basically, these cultures can also be invaded by bacteria because you are supplying numerous ingredients. Bacteria want to love, and the bacteria are crazy. They love acid, they love base, they like high temperature, they love low temperature. They are crazy, they are ubiquitous, they can grow everywhere, right? And then we have to clean them.
Yes. So we have different sort of residues like biofilm, biological residues, inorganic, organic, all sort of residues. All sort of
exactly. The media component may be stuck in the joints.
Yes.
And now they are building there, and they are becoming toxic.
Yes.
I can't. The acid cannot penetrate to clean them. Then I open up the nuts and bolts to clean and scrub them.
Yes,
how much expenses there, right? Look about the steps. How many things we need to solve here? They're all expensive. That adds to the cost of the final burger you're eating.
Yes.
True. Would somebody like to summarize? Would somebody like to summarize the challenges? Maybe you can summarize yourself. You have the mic. We discussed so. Did anybody miss any point that?
Anybody would like to add anything?
Anybody would like to add anything? That's a good point. Try to summarize the challenges. We'll take a break after 3 minutes. Yeah.
So we started with the different technique, like ethical issues, consumer acceptance. Like there will be variations in those. Again, then.
Come to the camera. Yeah.
So there can be issues with consumer acceptance and a lot of like I can say consumer awareness needs to be created. Then we have a lot of optimization issues. So just to summarize, like majorly synthetic media, if we are producing, we have to do a lot of engineering and a lot of scientific research into that. Then scaffold and processing, like we have to optimize those things. Apart from that, there are people have said ki there are a good amount of energy consumption. So that also we need to see. Sustainability issues, this is a debatable thing, I should say. So and then we have like different sets of regulatory things have to be established. And what else was there? Health impacts. Because once we process those things, we really don't know what is happening on the molecular level, and even if we quantify that, long-term health.
Exactly, the long term, because maybe the small population is fine. Maybe the same population is eating again and again. What happens to them when they grow old? Because then people have to wait until 70 years to get the result, right?
Exactly.
That's a problem. I agree.
There is no shortcut process to do that.
No,
yet.
Unfortunately, no.
Shelf life assessment. That is a big we have to optimize that, and life cycle assessment has to be done. And then I added like in integration of other techniques like fermentation and things which can be done
for the post processing.
And lastly, I have one question: can we have something called clean label cultured meat? Like
can we have that label? It's clean labeled cultured meat. Labeling required. I'll come back to that point also. It's a very good question.
Using most of the natural things, only bare minimum sort of like additives. So if we can work on to that, I think consumer acceptance will be like
I completely agree. With the minimal thing, can you get the maximal benefit? But please note that the world follows the law of mass balance.
Yes.
Right? We can't create anything without using ingredient, something, right? If I create lab grown meat like this, take it. That's fantastic thing, right? But the chemistry, the world doesn't work like that. You need carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, phosphorus, everything, then you can convert into something else. It's a balance, right? Mass balance. During making this mass balance, we lose so many things. That somebody was talking about waste generation will be very high. So it might not be practical, sustainable or something, yeah. Do somebody want to add some more point to this? Okay, now we talked about all bad things about cultured meat. Oh, blah, 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 problem. Is somebody having a good feeling about cultured meat? Please talk about that. Then we'll take a break. It's not bad. Yeah, give it to him, the mic, yeah. What do you think the good side of that one? Yeah.
First of all, animals will be saved. There will be no slaughtering.
Can you hear that one? Yeah. There is some good thing. One, no slaughtering. Animals are saved. Animal welfare is there. Very important point.
Second, production, if we optimize all the processes, then we can produce as per our demand. And
so mass production is possible provided you optimize everything. Bioreactors can be big size nowadays. We're talking about liters of liters bioreactors can be made, right? It's scalable. Less space is required because animal husbandry requires a lot of space, a lot of water, a lot of things, but here less space. Yeah.
And one more thing, it will be contamination free, as in case of slaughtering there are a lot of chances of during handling contamination chances are more high.
Exactly. So food poisoning from meat is biggest challenge throughout the world, including India. Meat is spoiled a lot. If they forget to slaughter properly, immediately after slaughtering, if they forget to store properly, you will have a serious food contamination. Foodborne illness is one of the biggest challenges even for death in developing and underdeveloped countries, including our own country, right? So that's a big challenge.
One more thing, we can craft food as per our demand. Some in case of meat, saturated fats are high. People do not like, some who are concerned with health, they do not depend on it. So we can craft food as per our desire.
Very beautiful point. We can craft food as per our desire, right? I don't want to have more cholesterol. I don't want to have more triglyceride. Maybe we can craft the food enriched with protein, less unwanted fat. Yeah, good, very good. Anything else?
So good. One point he added in the initial only key, there will be a lot of employment opportunities for different kinds of people.
Exactly,
But there will be a lot of programs also for students to study so that they can get the right kind of employment.
Absolutely, lot of research and development opportunity, lot of job benefit. But I would like to put it on a scale, right? I want to put it on a scale here. We are creating lot of job opportunities in cultured meat, yes. Now I'm consuming more and more cultured meat. Who is losing the job? Somebody is getting the job. Somebody is losing the job. Who is that?
The people slaughtering slaughterhouses.
Exactly. There is some people who are into animal husbandry. They are losing the job. Now we need to train them to come to this company. Yes. Am I clear? So it's not, the world has to be balanced. Remember, it cannot go. Okay, only engineers should get the job and not the carpenters. Then the world will be imbalanced, right? So think about this. This is not an easy thing to do, but that can be managed somehow to make profit, job, environmental sustainability. Yeah, you have a point? Yeah. It's okay. You forgot. Yeah. That's okay. That happens because we're talking about too many things. You know, we are on the 8th day, right? Our brain cells are almost dead. I'm trying to revive them somehow, and we need chai now. Let's go. Okay.
So I could recall it.
Yeah.
Just a second. I could recall it.
Okay. His brain cells are not dead yet.
So maybe not all the vegetarians or flexitarians, but a fraction of them might have better different food options now. Like maybe some of them might have this thing they can now have this meaty kind of thing also.
Absolutely right.
They're diversifying their food basically.
Absolutely, because my original intention to not to eat meat because I did not want to kill an animal. That was my original intention. Yes. That's the reason. That's the sole reason why I'm not eating meat. Now I am telling them we are not killing any. One fine day we only took a stem cell from a live animal. We did not kill them, right?
Yes.
We took a stem cell from a live animal. I'm telling in the social media, right? I'm making a reels now. Okay, I took it from the live animal, nothing has been killed. Now I have a chicken drumstick in my hand, but it's actually not a chicken. Right?
Yes.
And now I'm giving that opportunity to my friend who originally thought I'm killing the chicken to get this drumstick. Now I'm not killing. Oh, okay, now I can eat the drumstick.
Exactly.
That's the beauty, right? And that's the transition we want to have. And there, this is an important, this will play an important role. Fantastic point. With that, I really need chai. So we will take a break, 15 minutes break, and we'll be back. Okay? I am All right, welcome back again, and we are on the day 8, lecture number 15, emerging innovations, especially on cultured meat, microalgae and insect proteins. We are going to continue that lecture for a while. So, we have been discussing about cultured meat, right? And Nivetha, you really missed that lecture. You were there? I attended online. Okay, that's good. So, we discussed a lot about cultured meat. How do we produce, why do we have to produce cultured meat? How do we produce cultured meat? What are we doing exactly to produce cultured meat, and what are the challenges, advantages and so on we discussed. Any questions about cultured meat? Any question? If you are really interested in reading more about cultured meat, I really recommend this review article which is published in Advanced Sciences. I really enjoyed reading it. So, just go through this article, and there is also a very nice article written by GFI, Good Food Institute, the US one. They have a fantastic article about cultured meat and problems, regulatory guidelines and so on. So, you are welcome to read through these two articles. Is it okay? I only covered the fundamentals. I did not go very deep into the subject, but you are welcome to refer to these two articles. Now, I will move on to the other two topics of today, microalgae or algae and insects. I am sorry. As I mentioned, I have covered these two subjects in detail on day 1. So, I will not explain them again in detail. I will just skim through the slides. Is it okay? That is because at the interest of time, plus I have already covered them. Today's main part was cultured meat, and I have taken enough time on that. Is it okay? So, algae are nothing but they are algae. They are photosynthetic, they are aquatic, they love growing on water. The beauty of microalgae is that they can produce food by using water, sunlight and some nutrients, right. They are very sustainable, that is the reason. They produce food, they are photosynthetic because they are not dependent on someone else to produce food. They produce food themselves, that by using sunlight, water and some nutrients, and that is very advantageous for us because we do not have to rely on animals, we do not have to rely on even on plants to produce, let us say proteins, let us say fat, let us say carbohydrates, let us say vitamins, let us say polyunsaturated fatty acids. Everything can be produced by this beautiful organism. Sometimes they grow fast and sometimes they grow slow. They can be grown in open pond, they can be grown in bioreactors. Microalgae are very beautiful because they can also grow in the absence of light. They are called heterotrophic. They can also grow in the presence of light, also in the absence of light, because in the morning they become photosynthetic, in the night they become heterotrophic. We can say that mixotrophic mode of growth. They are very versatile. I mean, are you understanding what I mean? They are very versatile because if they have light, they will grow. If they do not have light, they will grow. Light and no light, still they will grow. They need some amount of nutrients because again, the world works on mass balance. You can't create a new mass without adding feed compound, that is important. So, microalgae also need that. They get the energy from the light, they get carbon from carbon dioxide, they get hydrogen from water, so they can create new proteins and so on. I have already covered all these things. Seaweeds are also similar. The only difference between microalgae and seaweeds are macroscopic, they are bigger, but usually microalgae produces more proteins than seaweed. So, seaweeds are not generally used for protein purposes, they are mainly used for carbohydrate purposes. For example, sulfated polysaccharides, all this can be produced from seaweeds. As I said, microalgae contains proteins, polysaccharides, lipids, pigments, vitamins. Basically, they are mixed of everything. The beauty here is that you can train them so that they produce more proteins, or you can train them so that they produce more fat. You can train them so that they produce more vitamins. That is the beauty. You can train their metabolism. They are very flexible in terms of their metabolism. Depending on the type of the strain, depending on the conditions you are providing to grow, they start producing one or more molecules in large quantity. For example, Chlorella vulgaris, it is a well known microalgae used for production. They can produce more protein up to 50% in some situation. For example, if you supply more nitrogen, they produce more protein. In some situation, you stress them, they start producing more fat. In some situation, they produce more colorants, for example, carotenoids. You take Haematococcus pluvialis, that is a microalgae that produces astaxanthin, a red color pigment. So, that is species specific, it is known to produce astaxanthin. So, what I wanted to say that you have a lot of options in microalgae. It is not just one microalgae, they say, I do not know, maybe 100,000 species or something. It's so many species are available, they are unique in one or other way, but we have not exploited everything. Chlorella vulgaris, Haematococcus pluvialis, Nanochloropsis, Senedesmus. These are some of the well known microalgae we are training today. And you must have heard about spirulina, Anthospira platensis or platensis, whatever that is spirulina. It is not microalgae, it is cyanobacteria, but they are same but different. One is prokaryotic, this is eukaryotic. Botanically they are different, but on a productivity wise they are similar in the sense Anthospira produces a lot of proteins, a lot means up to 90%. So, this is just a graph I wanted to show that the protein content when you compare animal based versus microalgae, they are a lot. Basically, if you want to say about the weight basis, microalgae are really abundant in proteins. I also mentioned this thing earlier in terms of protein quality, they are not that bad. Their protein quality is equivalent to plant and animal sources. For example, if you look into spirulina, they are really good in terms of their nutritional quality, very comparable to egg or soybean protein isolate. Okay? And I wanted to mention one simple thing is that it is already in the markets. There are some industries or there are some countries have approved that you can market them. They are available in capsule form, they are available in powder form. But one of the challenges here is that the good thing is they contain everything that we need healthy. Can you talk about challenges? Yeah, Asta?
So when we grow the spirulina, there are chances of mineral toxicity.
Exactly, toxic and they come up with something else. That is this is one of the challenges very similar to cultured meat. Yeah. The color. They always come up with this green color because of chlorophylls, and we do not want to have color, right. When you have a green color, the food becomes green, first problem. The second problem is green color absorbs light. It will become a photosensitizer. Come back to my previous lecture, what photosensitizer can do. They go to higher energy state, they can do all the radical and non-radical mediated reactions. They can oxidize not only the protein which is coming from microalgae, other thing you have added to food, that will also be modified. So, that is one of the challenges. So, you compromise the product quality, somehow we need to remove the color. How do we remove the chlorophyll? Extraction, purification, another problem. Otherwise, you can go GMO approach, genetically modified organisms. You knock out the chlorophyll gene, you can produce. But again a problem, GMOs are not allowed to eat in some countries. They have their own advantages, and of course we have non-GMO way to produce also. That is another story. I do not teach all these things today. Just to let you know, they have its own advantages and its own disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage according to me, we can't eat the whole microalgal biomass. We can use Anthospira, spirulina, because they have a very weak cell wall. But if you want to eat Chlorella vulgaris directly, remember my diagram? Protein is inside the cell wall. cell wall of microalgae are very, very strong, and if you eat them, the cell wall has to be broken down in your stomach. To do that, you need cellulase enzyme. Unfortunately, human beings lacks cellulases, hemicellulases, pectinases. We don't have it. So actually the protein may not be digestible, may not be bioavailable, and that is a challenge we have to solve here. Is it clear? I don't go deep into that because I have already explained that one. Beauty is that you can grow them in large quantity. This is the Haematococcus pluvialis, what I was talking about. It produces a beautiful red pigment. We can use it as a colorant to color meat. Now you can see that how two industries can club, right? Biggest challenge I have already mentioned, and also today they are very expensive. They may be up to 10-fold more expensive than the plant proteins, simply because it looks all fancy and nice. I say, oh, less land, less water, more product, high protein, but they all need cultivation strategies, big capital investment. You can't grow microalgae in Copenhagen, in Denmark easily. Why? Because sunlight. We lack sunlight, we can't make open fold, and microalgae for growth they also need some temperature. They love heat. Copenhagen temperature minus some degree Celsius during winter. We can't do it photobioreactor outside. We need to maintain the temperature inside. Maintaining temperature is so expensive. Am I clear? So these are the problems we are facing. Any question about microalgae? It has a lot of potential, but it also comes with its own problem. I have already taught you this one, so I don't go into detail. Any question? No. Then insects, we discussed a lot about insects. We discussed somebody who have a startup. What was the name of the startup? I forgot. Hell Locust. Hell Locust startup, they will be there. We're going to discuss more about that one. Fantastic source of proteins, high quality proteins in fact. In fact, they also come up with very good minerals, very good amount of PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. It's a win-win benefit, but the biggest challenge here is that consumer acceptability. Many people think they are bugs. Many people think they carry diseases. So consumer acceptability is really, really low for insect proteins or whole insects. However, we discussed about the strategies. Just to mention that they are very sustainable. With less amount of water, less amount of land, you produce more insects. Plus, when you see the biomass, 80% of their body can be edible. Only 40% of body is edible in case of cow. The rest is bone, hair, skin and other things. But here is more edible. So it's also sustainable, high quality protein, very digestible, but the problem is consumable acceptability. But to avoid that one, we can convert them into ingredients, right? You don't have to eat whole insect, convert them into ingredients, then they can be converted into a product. Extrusion, fermentation, 3D printing, any different technology you convert protein into product. So we need to take plan B. Plan A is directly eating, not working, go for plan B. Usually insect protein flour is used in bread making today. It's not universally adapted. I can only see many articles on bread making. That means they take X percentage of wheat flour and replace it with Y percentage of insect flour, and then they get high quality nutritious bread, because bread may have a very low protein content, very low amount of good amino acids. Then you add a portion of, you can't make bread completely out of insect flour because of the gluten problem. You need that networking, but you can take a portion out of them and add this portion. You can get a high quality bread. That's being done. That's being done a lot. Oh, one slide got deleted here, unfortunately, or maybe it's there. But the biggest challenge is the consumer acceptability. I read a recent article published. They clearly say that it's going down. It's not going up, because many consumers still think that insects are no-go. Cultural problem. Okay. That's the end of my lecture number 15. Now we will move on to the next lecture, lecture number 16. I'll only take it briefly. It's important, but we don't need a lot of explanation here. So I'll only dedicate a small amount of time to lecture about regulatory frameworks for alternative proteins and what are the global perspectives. I think when you're talking about meat analogs, somebody told we don't have regulations for that. I think that is a group they discussed. We don't have regulations for that, but we do have regulations for some cases. So regulatory bodies are very important to regulate the type of food we are consuming. Now tell me, why FSSI is important? Yeah, you can pass a mic to her. Archana, yeah.
In India, they forms the regulation and guidelines.
Why do we need that regulations and guidelines?
Otherwise, anybody will sell anything.
What happens if anybody sells anything? Safety, right? Food is not only nutrition. We need to eat safe food, not only a nutritious food. Nutritious and safe food, they come hand in hand, right? Also to maintain the standard of the food. In other words, it's the food quality, right? Otherwise, as
because
said, yeah.
When the food is being manufactured, it has to be uniform for all the in terms of all stuff, right?
Exactly.
In nutrition, in human safety, in
Yeah.
providing the other benefits.
Yeah.
So,
So it has to be nutritious,
it has to be
healthy, safe. So somebody has to control this one, right? Otherwise,
Right.
as you mentioned, or as she mentioned, he will make an insect protein product, and he has no clue what exactly he is doing. He made a nice product, looks fantastic, and he also tasted it, looks very meaty, very juicy, very tasty, and he will sell it to Nivetha. And Nivetha will eat it, and then she gets stomach upset, right? Because he forgot to label the amount of allergens present it, and he did not do any analysis of it because he has no time and money for that one. He has only time and money to make a tasty, high tasty food. Somebody has to control him, right? And that is the job of regulatory agencies. They try to control things. They try to give guidelines on what to sell and what not to sell. They try to give guidelines on what should be the composition and what should not be the composition. They tell exactly what should be the labeling requirement. They tell exactly what should not be added, what can be added, what may be added, what may not be added. All these guidelines they start giving. When you go and nowadays, you are a food scientist. When you go back, you will always turn back the package and see they write a 1 box. They say ingredients list, they make something in bold, something they add E number. I don't know whether they add E number in India, but if you come to Europe, you will there. Yeah, the INS, right? In Europe, they add E number. They have a specific E number for antioxidant. They have a specific E number for something. So they have to label it very carefully. If you do mistake, they will get a hefty fine. Am I clear? So that is the job of regulatory agent. They look after two things often: food safety and food quality and safety, and plus the labeling things. Okay. So you are pretty sure that you know about FSSAI. Can somebody expand? Food Safety Standard Authority of India, FSSAI. There are a lot of other food safety regulation. Can you name some of them? Very
European
famous
Union.
and very powerful one is FDA. What is the full form?
Food Drug Administration.
Food and Drug Administration of United States of America. Anything else?
EU, European Union.
EU has a regulatory agency called EFSA. It's basically the one that will control the quality. EFSA.
Codex also, sir. They
Codex
also make, they
exactly.
make regulations.
EFSA, European Food Safety Authority. They make a lot of assessment. They really check it and say whether it's edible or not. Yeah, then ISO, International Standard Organization. Then again, Yes, exactly. The Bureau of Standard now, the I think FSSI is a new thing, right? When did it establish?
So dissolving all the Fs, including the PFA, FSSI was formed and established in 2011.
2011 is relatively new. There was something called NFS, or what is that called? Was that? EGMA. Okay, okay, okay. I'm not aware of the Indian rules, to be frank, but you know better than me. Just to let you know that there is a lot of. Do you know any other thing? But in fact, there are a lot of regulatory agencies, and depending on the countries. Okay, each country usually have their own regulatory agencies. They might be influenced by big ones. FDA, EFSA, they might influence their decision, but each countries have their own regulatory agencies. They try to regulate the food quality and the labeling requirement. That's the take-home message. Okay, I tried to highlight some of the important regulatory agencies in this this one: FDA, EFSA, the codex you are mentioning, FSSI, Food Standard Agency, ARSO in South America. World Health Organization is not actually real regulatory agencies, but they are honorary regulatory agencies because they start telling some guidelines. What do you mean by malnutrition? What kind of nutrient food should be good for Indian continent, African subcontinent? They give some kind of advices rather than regulations. Okay. Lot of other things is there. GCC, maybe it's in Arabian continent. So yeah, I tried to copy paste it from an internet thing because I found it really nice summary. I'll leave the slides for you when you are free. Just find it out. There are some powerful and influential regulatory bodies. What does that mean? That FDA, just to take an example, they are having so good facility, so many people working for them, a very big organization. They actually are the pioneer of regulatory bodies. I can say that one because they really do a lot of things in their bodies. When it comes to cultured meat, they work a lot on it. When it comes to soy protein isolate, they work a lot on it. When you say insect protein, they work a lot on it. They try to do all the experimental evidence, get all the experimental evidence to give a regulation. They're really powerful. FDA can influence many regulatory bodies in other countries, other parts of the world. They really can influence. If FDA says yes, if EFSA says yes, many countries says yes. They don't necessarily have to do the experiments. Am I clear? Maybe I'm not on camera here, but that's actually fact, right? Because they are really influential. You also have an influential thing is FSSI, the Indian one. And then you have a codex, which is actually the global food standards. It's basically a partnership one between WHO and FAO. Who is who? World Health Organization, FAO, Food and Agriculture. They're UN based organizations, right? They are really powerful and influential. Then we have a ceremonial one. Exactly, they can't give a strict guidelines because WHO cannot say what Indians should have. They can give an advice. They can't create a regulations. So they are honorary bodies, but still we seriously consider them. Okay. Then we have regional ones. For example, USDA can give a certification for something. They need not give certification for everything, right? Some regulatory one. So different types of regulatory bodies are available. Just take home message. You don't have to remember everything. Just remember that the regulatory bodies exist in each and every part of the world. Not necessarily every country has them. We have 100+ countries. Not every single country has regulatory bodies, but most of the developing and developed countries do have regulatory bodies, and they really control. You must have heard about FSSI visit to some places. Just check it randomly, right? They do really make a check, make sure that quality standards are adhered. Okay. Now I'll talk a little bit about novel food regulation around the world. I must admit that I found all the information in this website from Good Food Institute. Follow this one. So all my future slides, I acknowledge them because I did not have to read a lot of papers because they summarized everything. they made my life much easier. So I'll just brush through how the regulatory standards exist in different countries. There's not much to teach here, just to tell, okay? There's not much to teach here, just to tell, okay? Singapore, beautiful highlight is that is the first country where they sold cultured meat in a restaurant after an approval. Approval took several years, of course, but that was the first country that sold cultured meat in a restaurant, okay? China has a 5 years plan, you must have heard about it. They are including these alternative novel foods in their 5 years plan. India, we have NSF, that's what I was talking about. There is a regulation about in India called NSF. You need prior approval from them before you market your novel food products. For example, FSSAI is the regulatory body in India. They are actually approved mycoproteins coming from fusarium. I'll talk about mycoprotein and fusarium in my last lecture. You can produce actually really a meat analog out of them. FSSAI also granted a peer approval to Reliance algal protein powder. Can you see? So they have also given approval for a particular type of algal protein powder that uses fermentation approach. So it's not a new thing in India, things are also being approved in India. And I read this news article, they saying that the DBT is trying to look after, DBT, Department of Biotechnology, one of the biggest bodies in India for science and technology. They are working on what kind of guidelines to be made, what kind of food has to be approved, what kind of research is needed, a lot of debate is going on. Japan thinks it is an important, Japanese are very conservative people, and you know that, but they are still thinking about how these new products can come into their portfolio. South Korea, you can see that last article, they started in 2024, that's last year, they started getting an application about cultivated meat. They are progressive now, right? They are verifying it, whether it's good or bad. Thailand, first cultivated meat regulatory roundtable, they have held it. But I wanted to say that it's not still in the market there, but they are still working on it. Same thing is true with New Zealand. They have a very strict guidelines called FSANG. The full form, you will read it. That's the regulatory framework covers New Zealand and Australia. Israel worked a lot on artificial meat. Before Singapore, Israel actually worked on cultured meat actually, but they did not market for some COVID reason or something like that, I don't recall. So Singapore actually sold it first. European Union has a huge influence on marketing, production, marketing and consumer acceptance of alternative products, because they have a strong regulations, even stronger than FDA I see sometime, because I live in Europe, I know how strict they are. FDA has approved many things, but that has not been approved in European Union. Please note that. European Union is very strict on GMOs. FDA has many approved products on GMOs, but not European Union. Products that can be sold in America may not be sold in European Union because they have a different rules. Am I clear? European Union has a different rule. The beauty of European Union is that if EFSA approves, it's likely that the 27 European countries, something like that, they can follow that one. So the market will suddenly expand because they are unions, right? Same thing is India. If the Indian government approves, Karnataka will follow the same thing, Madhya Pradesh will follow the same thing, Rourkela will follow the same thing, Bihar will follow the same thing, right? Like that we have a European Union there. If EFSA, but of course there are some local guidelines, I must emphasize that one. There are some local guidelines as well, they are allowed to make local guidelines. I can give one example that there's a lot of thing going on about cultured meat in Europe, but Italy and Hungary, they were saying no, because Italy usually, you know, prosciutto, salami and all these things, they're really good at getting high quality, really delicious meat. It's an important, there's a backbone of their culture and their business and their market, it's actually meat industry. And they're not so positive towards cultured meat. I was reading a lot of news articles. I don't know, I can't make legitimate statements here based on the news articles on the camera, but you can read yourself how Italy is doing things. We can approve it, but they have a local guidelines as well. European Union is very, very strict on GMO, just to let you know. It's not approved. If you have a genetically modified organism, they say no. But some cases they are still working, because now there is a new regulations about, I was reading some articles from EFSA, they're saying that how many deletions of the nucleotides you need in a protein, in a DNA, they can have a different guidelines. Are you introducing a new gene exclusively? They have a different guidelines. So you must have heard about novel food rules in European Union. That's a beautiful novel food classification, because even if you isolate a protein from, let's say, soybean, if you're using ultrasound processing to isolate it, they have a guidelines for that. If you're using cold plasma, it will become novel food under category. So it's not very straightforward to market that food products. Oh, ultrasound is producing lot of yield, I will use it, I will market it. No. There is somebody will stop it, they will ask the question. Am I clear? So there is a novel food regulatory guidelines. In fact, they actually assess it by case basis. That means they cannot generalize, they cannot say that, okay, proteins from soybean is good, the same rule is applied for PA. No. They would like to check whether the P is doing the same job or not. So it's not generalized guidelines. Am I clear? You can see that there is some statement here, it can be sold in across 25, 27 EU countries. That's a beauty. If EFSA approves, if the EU or EC, European Commission approves, it can be sold in different countries. The market can be suddenly expanded. Okay. Okay, this is what I was talking about. I got it from again from GFI. In July 2024, Hungary introduced a draft legislation to ban the production and marketing of cultivated meat. Can you see? So it's not a universal thing. Some countries have their own opinion, very strong opinion on what to eat and what not to eat, because they look after the local cultural thing, they look after the local business thing. Okay. European Union back in November 2024, genetically modified organism found in impossible food soy leg hemoglobin to be safe for consumption. See, basically Impossible Food is an American company. They produce a burger. Okay. In their burger they add leg hemoglobin, which is actually analogous to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin and myoglobin is found in the animals, that gives you red color. And it is known that the flavor, the meaty flavor you get is because of those compounds, because that contains iron, chelated one. When you cook it, they produce lot of volatile compounds, and that gives you the meaty flavor. And this company found that instead of taking this hemoglobin or myoglobin from animals, plants also produce leg hemoglobin, plant hemoglobin you can call it as. When you add that, when you get the same flavor. They marketed nicely in the Americas to get the flavor. Now the European Union, the EFSA also found that it's okay, it's coming from the genetically modified yeast, but you can still market it in Europe, because as long as you don't have a foreign DNA, of course. There's a lot of guidelines, but we are also, the EFSA is also becoming progressive. Am I clear? Now they can market their ingredient in European Union. I would really recommend you to read through this article if you really want to know a little bit about how EU is governing their law, right? Alternative proteins and EU food law. There's a lot of information in this particular article. I don't have time to summarize everything, but you're welcome to read through it. United States has FDA and USDA. FDA is a very powerful one. And another last thing I wanted to mention is that it's not just about ingredients, it's also about labeling, right? Because the labeling often determines the consumer's acceptability. You know, sometimes they label it natural, sometimes they name the green box, vegetarian, sometimes they make it healthy. What do you mean by healthy? It's a stupid label to have, right? To whom it is healthy? It might be healthy for him, but might not be her. I don't like those kind of labelings sometimes. They just label it healthy. What do you mean by healthy? It's a very arbitrary word, right? I don't believe in them. But those labels cannot be put because some regulatory bodies have strict guidelines. You can't put those labels. You can't put vegan label unless it is so and so. You can't put vegetarian label unless it is so and so, right? So labeling is also governed by these regulatory bodies. What I found in the internet was that meaty, sausage, dairy, these are the things we have to be very careful with labeling. There are strict guidelines on that. You can't label cultured meat as meat. They are different. European Union has a very strict label on milk. According to them, milk is just milk. If you put something extra to milk, a flavorant, cannot be labeled as milk. Am I clear? If you add a small amount of bioactive compounds to milk to improve their quality, it's not a milk. So there is a strict guidelines on what to label as milk in the EU, right? The labeling requirement. So that brings to the end of my today's lecture number, I don't remember now, 16. So we have been discussing about the requirement of regulatory bodies. They regulate two things, food safety and labeling. Each country has their own regulatory bodies. Some are really powerful, for example, FDA, EFSA, EU, and FSSI in India. These regulatory bodies are very powerful. Please note that I'm not a regulatory person. I might be wrong in some statement myself here because EFSA is something that they influences the political decisions later because then the government decides what to regulate, just to let you know. They might not make the rules themselves. They help to make the rules. There's a small difference here. So I have to be a bit careful with my own statements. But there are some regulatory bodies, they regulate the things. Am I clear? To summarize, the regulatory bodies are important, otherwise everybody can sell everything, people will go sick. Am I clear? So we end the lecture today and we will be back at 2:15. Okay, we will be back at 2:15 and we will take the last lecture and the tutorial. With that, enjoy your lunch. Let's see at 2:15. Thank you. Well, welcome back everyone. Welcome to the GAN program, Next Generation Sustainable Alternative Proteins for Food, Fundamentals and Technological Innovations. And today we are on the day 8. So we are having the last lecture, lecture number 17 of the day, consumer perception and market acceptance of alternative proteins. Well, in our previous lecture, we have been discussing about cultured meat, insect proteins, microalgal proteins and so on, and you asked me a lot of questions. Okay, who will buy it, why they will buy it, okay, after they are buying, how they will eat it. All these questions has to be answered, right? See, I would like to repeat this statement that we are trying to produce alternative proteins for the consumptions, right? Somebody has to eat it, that means somebody has to buy it. So, consumers will buy a given food product if and only if they like it, right? The like is a broad word, they might like it for several reasons, right? That we must have to keep it in mind. So, we somehow have to persuade our consumers so that you can sell your products, coming from your startup, let us say the Sambalpurian locust, hell locust product, whatever. So, consumers are important, am I clear? So, now I am going to talk to you little bit about how consumers are pursuing the plant-based or alternative proteins today. I am not an expert of consumer behavior and other things, I solely base it on the internet or research article. I must tell you that I will not go in deep into any details here, it is just to showcase you that where are we today. And I will try to highlight some of the results from the consumer market in the US and in the Europe. It is simply because I do not have sufficient information in India, because it is not that much consolidated with respect to alternative proteins in India when compared to US or Europe. So, there is a lot of data available in the US market and European market, and those things I would like to highlight, but we can always relate. Is it okay? All right. So, consumers preference and acceptance. We have multiple types of consumer whenever we say food or alternative food or novel food or new food or something like that. We have one set of consumers, they think it is great, right? I would like to save environment, I would like to have animal welfare, I am a vegan, so they think I will go for plant-based or I will use alternative proteins. That means they have a very strong opinion for consuming alternative foods or food containing proteins. Make sense? Very strong opinion. And then we have the opponent group. They think it is all fake, right? If I say cultured meat, it is fake. If I say insect, it is fake. It is not my thing. I will never touch, rather I would die, right? Those kind of people also we have. That is not into my platter. So, and then we have another set of people, they think, okay, it might be some trend going on, let me try. If it is good, I will buy. No, I would like to save environment, that is in my heart, maybe occasionally I will eat it, right. So, those kind of people we have. Then we have confused atmas. So, they are confused, right. Should I buy or should I not buy? They keep debating, rather they do not know what exactly has to be done, because they do not follow scientific articles, they do not follow news articles. So, they are confused. I am not blaming them, right. It is not, I am telling just there are set of people. I try to classify them, it is not a scientific classification, it is my personal classification. So, we have these sets of people. I am very sure you guys fall into one or other of this category. You can raise your hand if it does not belong to one or other category. I am pretty sure most of us belong to one, or you do not have to raise which category you belong to, that is up to you, but that is how the situation is there at the moment. We do not have a situation saying everybody says it is great, let us have plant-based. There is no situation everybody thinks it is fake. If everybody thinks it is fake, there is no market, but the market is increasing. Let us talk a little bit about consumer assumption. I will tell you some good things about do not read this big table, just to highlight here is that we know that most of the plant proteins or insect based proteins or algal based proteins are really rich in essential amino acid content, and when you say protein quantity, there's really high. We are way beyond let us say regular vegetables or regular meat or something like that. The amount of protein we can get from them is really high. And we talked a lot about digestibility, bioavailability and something, but they are comparable, they are not super bad except gluten or something like that. They are not super bad, right? Imagine let us say casein has digestibility score of 1, soy had also 1, pea protein had 0.93, so they are not very bad. They are still really good in terms of digestive. Of course, we have other problems, that problem is always there. So, they are really good. If they are not good, we can make them good, because now we have lot of technologies. For example, we have fermentation, we have extrusion, we have ultrasound processing, we have boiling, we have cooking, we have germination, we have soaking, so many processing we know to inactivate unwanted things to improve the quality of the plant based foods. So, everything is going in the right direction, and now there is a lot of survey around the world, right. I just wanted to give you a background that things are going in this direction. Now people start asking the people, okay, now the products are available in the market, why do you want to eat plant based and how are you eating plant based or alternatives? Many people say that this is I think this is from, I copied from this particular website, or no, this is from the Smart Protein project, I hope so, but that is not important. So, many people think that there is a multiple reason. One reason is I want to try something new, because there is something new on the market shelf and everybody is talking about, oh, meat analog, oh, almond milk, oh, soy milk, I really would like to try it. What does that mean? That is one of the motivation. The second motivation is, I heard a lecture online and they said that plant based are very healthy, and there were a guy making a lot of reels on plant based meat, and I watched reels because I am a big fan of that person. Now I think it is healthy. Of course, I did not read a scientific article, but I watch reels. So, that is the reason why I eat. I like and trust the brand. Now the plant based one is promoted by one of the best companies in the world. We have been historically buying products from that company. Now that company is selling plant based. I believe in them, I will buy. Oh, it might be looking delicious because they have a new texture, they have 3D printed now. It looks really delicious, let me try. And these are the possible reasons why apparently consumers are buying. And when they make it a survey, please note that I must mention it in the camera that I am not very sure about these percentages, just to let you know it, because they are individual surveys and I do not know how many participants are included in this kind of surveys, because that is the biggest challenges with consumer surveys. Sometimes the participants are 100, sometimes participants are 1000, and even 100 and 1000 does not represent the whole population, trust me, because it is very difficult to bring people to make survey, because everyone is busy nowadays, right, nobody wants to be on survey. So, that is the reason why I do not completely trust all the surveys. However, they give you the generic trends that we can believe, and consumer surveys are also part of our education. For example, at Department of Food Science and Food Science at the University of Copenhagen, we are into a lot of surveys. We know that how to do this systematically, but this is also part of research, just to let you know, it is not just fake thing. Am I clear? Okay, many people think is that the 48% consider that it is healthness, because they think plant based vegetarianism is good, it is health, and 34% thinks that it is I don't have to kill animals, right, and 34% also think that generation Z, that is what the director was telling, right. Let us follow the trend, right, everybody, my friend is following, I will follow. So, the trend, so that is also one of the reason why people go for alternatives. Now, if you look into the market trend from GFI here, this is one of the really nice organization. I really trust the data from them because they are really good. They clearly show that in terms of USA, you can see I lost the screen. We will take a short break. It is a technical problem. I lost the screen here. Just hold a second. USA, you can clearly see that the current US market is, oh, it's not on there now? Yeah. Okay, now lighting up. I think it's now coming, I can see the light. Okay, now it's lighting up, so you can see, right? So can you see the screen? Not bad, right? All right, so the GFI data shows that they have the market value of about $8.1 billion, which is super high. Plant-based foods made up to 1.1% of total retail food and beverages. 1.1%, that means a lot, not a lot. Am I clear? The 90%, 99% is other things. So, there is a market, but we are not talking about 50%. We are not talking about 25%. 6 in 10 purchased plant-based, at least somebody tried. There is a trend going on. And 96% of households that bought plant-based meat and seafood in 24 also bought animal-based meat. That means that they are not becoming 100% vegan or vegetarian. They are trying, it is going in this direction, but it is not completely transforming the market. Am I clear? In the US. Now, if you come to US again, you can see that frequency of buying, 11% people buy every week, right? And 43% people never bought. So, I am showing the hard realities now. I spoke a lot about plant-based, but it is a growing market. It is not completely into the market or completely into the household. Okay? We still have to do a lot of things. Come to Europe. The European Union, this is a European Union flag. Okay? Come to Europe here, the market is rising compared to 2008 quarters. If you come to 2020, I think it is around 49% increase in the rate. But the value, see 3.6 billion euro is not a lot when you say food commodity. It is also maybe less than 1% if I am not wrong when you compare it other food. It is rising, it is nice to show the increase, oh 40% increase, wow, we are happy, but it is not completely transforming the food habit there. Am I clear? It is still a small portion of the whole animal based world. I have no idea about India. But still, this is a nice project funded by the European Union, if I am not wrong, called Smart Protein Project, and they did a lot of consumer survey, about 7,500 participants from different countries within the EU, and they have some fantastic data generated, and try to copy some of their slides here. And they say that 46% of consumers are eating less meat than a year ago. They are eating less, not zero. Okay? 73% flexitarians are eating less meat than a year ago. Flexitarians are those who eat meat and other things together, vegetables and so on, like me, right. There is actually a trend going on to reduce at least meat consumption, but not to completely make them zero. Okay. And this is about European Union, how the individual countries are doing. I have where I live, Denmark, which is a very small country, eats beef 3 times per week, 13%, pork 3 times a week, 14%, chicken 20%, fish 14%. They have an intent to reduce the total. 51% people think that we would like to reduce, and actually Denmark and Italy is standing really well on that one. They have at least a mentality to reduce. Now we are still, if we look into the number here, they are actually eating around 15% of people consume on a weekly basis. Do you agree? How many of us can eat chicken 15% weekly basis? 15%. Do you eat weekly at least once or twice? Yeah, sorry, it's for the total, yeah. But now let me come back to the question here. Let's take India as an example. Of course, your own family as an example. How much meat do you consume? Every week do you eat once a week, twice a week, thrice a week, thrice a week? But if you come to a vegetarian family, 0 times a week, unknowingly, some people might eat. But do you agree? So, but if you look into my previous graph, I remember that the graph I showed with the meat and who is consuming more amount of meat. It's the North American people and then the Europeans and then it comes to Asian. We are consuming, but we are consuming in a small portion, which is usually, especially on Indian subcontinent, meat is usually not our source of protein. Usually, I am not using, simply because we rely mostly on grains, sometimes fish if it's the coastal region, nuts, and these are our main source of protein. It's also said that Asians, we especially Indians, we consume less protein than required. We need to consume around 60 to 70 grams of protein per day, but that is not we are eating, at least in Indian subcontinent. All right, so this is from the same project. I think the question was that why they would like to buy plant-based, for example, right? And number one reason is taste. That's something priority, like then health, then freshness, then additive, cheap, and blah 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 the other reasons, right? Taste is happen to be an important factor. That means if your plant-based meat analog, or if your plant-based protein, or if your insect-based protein, if it is not tasting good, you will not have a market. And if you look into the same project, I found this nice this one. Which product people are majority consuming? Plant-based, and then comes to fungal-based, mycoproteins, for example, and then algal-based, and then cultured, and last is insect-based. You can see that the market for the insect-based is still low compared to other things. I don't give a lot of explanation here because one slide is enough for you to understand what does it mean. So I don't teach you, I am telling you, please note that. I am not teaching this class, I am just telling you giving you the information. This is the question, where do you buy? And people think that, say that it's from the US. 53% they buy only in the retail shop, supermarkets, and 25% supermarket plus household consumption. I don't know what does the symbol mean for, I must have read that one. And 16% only the food service, for example, restaurants and something like that. So majority would like to buy from the supermarket, cook and eat, okay. And somebody was talking about social media, and they have a huge influence, the media has a huge influence on buying, tasting new things. We buy clothes, we buy other things based on social media at the moment, right? We see the trend in the social media and then we go for it. And 42% Facebook, and 25% YouTube, Instagram. I think it's from 2024. I forgot to put the reference here, but it's actually from this one, okay? From GFI again. So Twitter, is it no? What is it called? TikTok. Sorry, this is Twitter alias X now. So Amazon, Google, Foodnet, CNN news channels, and these are the you can see still that the Facebook is leading, and that's where you see maybe reels and other things and get more information. So that, I mean, it's an important information I would like to say, because somebody wants to make startups here, you know where to advertise now, right? Advertising is very important. That will help consumer to understand your product and to buy at the end of the day, right? Many companies are also including their in their product portfolio plant-based. For example, McDonald's they included Beyond Meat. I'm not very sure they're still doing it because I heard somewhere there was something is going on. I'm not very sure, still I'm on the camera, I don't want to tell the facts which I'm not 100% sure. But they tried using plant-based burger at some point. I'm not very sure still they're using. Microalgae is again the US Switzerland one, right? Like, yes, and they have a plant-based egg. Lindt is a very beautiful, very nice chocolate company. I really love their chocolates. And they launched oat milk based, because chocolate needs a lot of milk, right? Milk chocolate, and milk is not sustainable. And Lindt apparently tried to use plant based. Now you know, you don't have to use your ingredients just to make other products. You can also make nice chocolates out of them. Let's see, and what are the major drivers for producing alternatives. And also these are the challenges also. For example, one of the biggest driver is environment. I mentioned about my very first slide, very first day, greenhouse gas emission. That's the reason why we need to go for alternatives. The second driver is that taste. People would like to try something new, but that is also a challenge, because if the new thing is not tasting better than the other things they have been using in their culture, they would not buy it again, right? It's a good thing that they want to try a new thing. That's a human being. I would like to explore all the restaurant and see what special they have, but if the one of the restaurant is not serving good food, I would not visit again there. That's a consumer's attitude, right? So if your product is not tasting good, there is a problem. The third one is cost and price. The cost is amount of money you need to spend to get that particular product. The price is you pay to buy that particular product at the end of the day. They are interrelated. So if the ingredients are expensive, the processing is expensive, your end product is also very expensive. Now I'll try to talk a little bit about these things and where are we today. Again, I really like this particular slide. Many people are asking, okay, you are doing a lot of processing, why need to go for plant-based, why need to go for, again and again I'm telling, it's 100% true that alternatives or plant-based foods have least carbon footprint than animal-based. There is no doubt about it. Several research articles have proven it. It's not the newspaper, it's not the social media proven it. Research articles have proven it based on the LCA analysis, based on so many analyses. We can calculate the carbon footprint by number from scratch. There is a lot of tools to do that, and those calculations clearly show, not done by one person, several other persons independently, clearly shows that alternatives are good for the environment. These are the numbers you can see, but it's not 100% yet. Please note that we're not in that range. Coming back to the concern with respect to taste, 1 in 3 thinks that plant-based foods are not tasty as the real animal-based, for example. Just to take meat as an example, meat is not just meat, right? It comes with the color, right? It comes with that texture, right? It comes with that bone piece. It has that beautiful fat layer. It has that juiciness. How do I mimic that 100%? Is that possible? We can go very near, but it's a little bit impossible. But there is a company called Impossible in Impossible Burger in America. I think I visited that company. They gave me a burger. I'm a bit confused whether I visited Impossible or Beyond Meat. Anyways, I went to one of the leading companies, and they gave me a chicken burger, and they gave me chicken nuggets, and they also gave me plant-based nuggets. I could not distinguish. I really could. I know the taste of chicken nuggets. I eat it, right? 100% similarity I found, like 100% I'm talking about. I could not. There are several reasons why, because they used, I think, I'm not sure whether it's a soy or pea-based chicken nuggets they made it. But again, it was coated with all this crispy thing, and usually you can actually mask the flavor by adding something else. But totally it was really good nuggets, I could eat it. But that's okay, because we don't care what else you add at the moment. For us, the taste is important. So they really made a really good chicken nuggets. I was really surprised, because I could not distinguish which one is what. But I also tell that I went to the supermarket and tried salmon fillet. Texture was salmon, the taste was yuck. So still research to be done. This is again a survey. It shows that imagine you see a new plant-based meat product the next time you are going to grocery shop. Which of the following reason would you convince to buy? Select that, apply. 54%, nothing would convince me. That's a nice answer, right? These are the extremists, right? The red guys. I don't give a shit. So these are the guys. But there is a 38% thing that taste and texture, I believe in that one. And it is the monthly users here. The label shows it has more protein than conventional meat, right? Labeling things, oh, it may be healthy because it has more protein. And 6% think it costs the same as conventional meat. Can you see cost thing here? Now they are telling that the cost for the plant-based is higher than the conventional thing. Am I clear? That's the consumer's opinion. Now it's a European thing, so let's come back from America to Europe, and again it's from the Smart Protein project. And when they were asked something similar question, there is not enough choice in plant-based foods when I eat out. So that's basically, now they were asking the question, what are the things that you prevent eating plant-based? For example, I talked a lot about plant-based half an hour ago. I went to a restaurant, trust me, I ate chicken biryani and came back now. So that's the consumer attitude, right? Because I don't have much option in that restaurant. I have a chicken drumstick made up of plant-based, tasting exactly same thing? No, we don't have that option yet. Once it is there, probably I would try it. So we are still going in this direction, but we are not there yet. I can skip this slide. There is also some different social behavioral attributes. That is, I took from this research article, and they made a lot of survey on different research articles, and they consolidated this data, which is nice one. Potential food related versus discussed elicitors, the resulting behavioral responses and consequences. If you think it's coming from unknown origin, we think, I have no idea from where it is coming from. We don't know the traceability of the food product. If you really think it's unhygienic, oh, there is a bug, there is a bacteria in this one, no, I feel that maybe I would not try that one. If it is animal origin, now I have a bias because I'm vegan, I don't want to try animal origin. Contaminated, and all these factors determines, are the triggering factors, whether the consumer would buy or not buy. And all this can trigger in a way that they might reject the food. Am I clear? If you are sure that it has some unwanted things, I don't want to eat it. The behavioral consequence is that, especially for a human being, for example, consider me as an example. If I find one particular restaurant on that particular day unhygienic, I would not visit that restaurant forever in my life. I don't care. On that particular day, by mistake, it was unhygienic. On that day, I saw something really bad. You saw a cockroach in while you were eating, imagine. Would you visit the same restaurant again? That's a human attitude, right? Because we have this, so our brain is so complicated, we never forgive that restaurant owner, the Mal Malik. We hate them forever in our life. Oh, itna ganda khana de diya mujhe. My Hindi is very bad. I can speak in Kannada very nicely, but so okay. So that is the problem. Am I clear? So that's a human behavior, is so complex. Forget about it. Coming back to the situation where we need the social thing to be changed. So now if I have a plant-based product, imagine, we don't have to work a lot to sell. Because consumers, historically, we have been eating plant-based, right? Plant-based alternative is a new word, but we have been eating plant-based since ancient time. Do you agree? It's not something new. We call it as fancy word alternatives. We call it as isolates and concentrates. Wheat flour were there maybe in ancient time, right? It's not something new. Now we call it dry fractionation, wet fractionation or something like that, but they were always there. So, and fermentation is not a new thing. So when you use those things, probably people would directly, you don't have to convince people a lot. But when you come to a plant-based meat alternatives, then I say that I will bring this soya chunk and I will say it is chicken piece, right. I will come up with the algal based extruded product and I will say now it tastes like a nugget, then I have to convince, oh it tastes good, it is having a good digestibility, oh it has having a more protein, then I have to convince. But when you come to the cultured meat, we are in the high, it's very difficult to convince people, and more, and it's also important to know that it's not only about convincing thing, the technology we need to get them is also more complicated here, right. It's nice to process and produce plant based, much more easier compared to produce meat analog. You need to do extrusion, you need to do shear force. Cultured meat, oh serum, scaffolds, harvesting, hormones, growth factors, right, transporter molecules, so many things that will confuse me. So, technologically also it is very complicated. They will always add to something to our brain to buy it or not. This is something about price, if I am not wrong. Yes, this is something about price. It is again from GFI. GFI. You can see that these green ones are plant based and these yellow ones are animal based, different food products. You can clearly see that plant based are twice higher expensive, twice expensive than animal based. Now, if I am poor, I do not have money in my pocket, I have a plant based, I have an animal based, right, which one will you buy? But I want to save environment, still animal based, right, am I clear? Oh, plant based is little bit tasting better, still animal based, right, because when you do not have money, then other things does not matter. That is a human perception, right. I somehow wants to fill my stomach and then I will think about my environment. That is how human beings are built, right. That is how you are built, I am built, right. If I am hungry, I do not talk about environment. If I am hungry, I just want my food and then I will talk about the environment. Am I clear? So, this is where we are now at the moment, but it is very clear that the price is reducing rapidly. For example, as I said, IKEA has a goal that they would like to make everything plant based and they are actually giving it in a very small amount of price in their restaurants. For example, plant based meatballs they sell. So, there are many companies are towards reducing the price. Coming to the price, cultured meat is still more expensive. I copied this statement exactly as it is from this paper. You can see that the cost of cultured meat is around 66.4 kilograms to 2200 kilogram, and chicken is costing around $5 or $10. So, 10-fold to 22-fold higher price. Only the rich people can buy it because they have money and they care for environment. I am sorry to be sarcastic. Now, this last slide, this clearly shows that it was very recent article, if I am not wrong, it was from 2024, and they did a lot of analysis and they clearly make this highlight. Beyond the buzz, insect based foods are unlikely to significantly reduce meat consumption. They give a reason for this one. Processing is involved, expensive, consumers do not like it, and so and so. We are going, but not in the rate we are expecting. But one thing can promote people, money again, you give them offer, right, that we always love. You go to a cloth shop, buy 2 get 1 free, we will buy it. 50% Diwali discount, we will buy it. And that is a consumer attraction. So, you give discount on plant based, consumers might buy it. That is the way to attract. There you have to change the policies because the local supermarket has to change the policy, the government has to change the policy, they need to cut down the tax for the food, and if you do all these policy changes, perhaps you can reduce the price. And then this is another article I read recently, very nice survey. They clearly say that do we always need to mimic something? Why we are racing to mimic meat analog to meat? Why should we have that? Why can't we create something really new, right? Has a different texture, different taste, okay, but it's edible. Why should I try to mimic somebody, right? Why can't I be unique? But the problem with human being is that we have been eating the same thing for the last 100 years. Our tongue, our eyes, our hands, you know, they are addicted to that one. It's very difficult to change. But that's where the attitude has to be changed to buy and to consume more plant-based or more alternatives. I think that brings to the end of my today's lecture. To summarize, plant-based market is increasing, but it's still a fraction, a small portion of the entire food system, only small portion. Many people are trying, many people are buying, but not extensively, right? People think health is most important, people think environmental is most important. However, if the price cannot be reduced, if the taste cannot be improved, there is a problem. And the last thing is that it is not necessary that we need to mimic thing. It's not necessary to mimic meat into meat analog. It's not necessary. Rather, we can create a tastier, newer products. Then the consumer can buy. But there, lot of socio-economical thing has to be investigated. There's a lot of research articles on this one. I'm not an expert to tell all this. That's not needed also for our classroom here. But I just want to tell you where are we today. Any question?
So, whenever a food technology, food scientist, or I would rather ask like this: ki a food entrepreneur is doing something novel or unique.
Yeah.
He has to highlight something. He or she has to highlight something which is novel in their food product
Absolutely.
case.
Yeah. Yeah. What is
Right.
special? Yeah.
So means what if we promote on a social platform about the health benefits via some scientific evidence, and those experimentations which can really show the difference between what is traditional and what is novel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So can that help in the increase in consumer acceptance?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely true. We will take that exactly in the next debate session.
Okay.
So we're going to have we will have a break now. I'll come back to more questions. We will have a break now, and then we're going to debate the market strategy and how to improve consumer education and something like that, where probably your question is more relevant. Let's have a group activity later after the break. That will be our next session. Any question about consumer? What do you guys think? Do you agree with what I just explained? Right? That's the ground reality. But I have a really strong opinion or a feeling, gut feeling that we will change our attitude soon. Maybe things will definitely change in next 20 years, but I don't foresee things will change in next 2 years. I'm not scientist, I'm opinion based now. It's going, but it's not going rapidly, because I live in Copenhagen. I buy things always from a supermarket, and I know how much meat I get in the supermarket and how much plant-based we have. They have only one small booth for plant-based, and big shelves of meat. And meat is so high, very good quality in Denmark or in Europe. It's really fantastic quality. The quality of meat is really good, and there is less adulteration and less contamination and less problems. And I see the price is okay, and sometimes it's cheaper than vegetables. So then I thought, okay, I mean it's a ground reality. The vegetable I mentioned to you, Karela, which is a bitter gourd, that costs me 75 Danish krona. That's the real price today. 65 became 75 Danish krona. And chicken cost me per kilo 40 Danish krona maximum. Which one? Will I go and buy a Karela or 1 kilo chicken? This is where we are now. But of course, potatoes are much cheaper there, and there are other, I'm not comparing. Carrot is cheaper. I'm not comparing one into one, but there are some vegetables which I really want to buy, being Asian in Europe, they are very expensive. Chicken is cheap and I love chicken, I would buy that one. I don't want to go plant based because they are tiny bit, small packets, and I'm not very sure what exactly there in that. When I turn back and see the ingredient, I go crazy. Then okay, I'll eat tomorrow. I buy this one. It's my personal thing. Forget about the scientist in me. Am I clear? So this is where we are at the moment, but things are going in this direction. I'm not telling things are going in down, but I can also tell you that the market for beverages are increasing a lot compared to meat analogs. Beverages, plant-based milk, soy milk, almond milk, all these things are rising. They are number one, and then it comes to meat analogs and so on. Apparently, meat analog market is not going as fast as they were anticipating. All right, any question? No question, and thanks, and we end the teaching lectures today, and we will take the 15 minutes break and we will come back, okay? And we will discuss about the last debate of the day, okay? That's on camera. So we stop for